to the Waste of Kokomo. I'm Jimmy Shaw. Hey, give me the clap. That's the only time I can get the clap.
No, you had to clap that one time.
Oh, I did. I thought I had a case of crabs once, but it turns out there was only 23. That's one.
Oldie but a goodie.
Yeah, so here we are at our fourth episode. Yeah, man, this is like give it up for us. We've lasted 4 episodes. 4
weeks in a row. We actually met.
That's right.
Somewhat on time.
Somewhat, semi on time. I don't think we've made it on time yet, but that's all right because
we don't get paid for this.
And we wouldn't be the Waste of Kokomo if we were here on time. Right? So we're gonna do what we normally do. We're gonna start off around the table with our regulars. I'll start off. Lenny Pig has a gig.
Lenny Pig has a gig.
Lenny Pig has
You've
a gig.
been working on that all day.
Yeah. You know,
Dick.
well,
Took my joy.
So he's not with us today, but if he gets back in town, he said he's gonna stop in.
Train of thought loss.
Train of thought. So we're passing papers around, and it's
Passing notes.
not the good papers, anyways.
Oh shit! Yeah, rolling kind.
So we're gonna start off around the table, introducing everybody, and to my right we have the Dipper.
The Big Dipper.
Big or little?
Dipper.
No, you had a nickname for him. Remember the
I probably did.
cardiac?
The Cardiac Kid. That's right.
Kid.
Give it up to my right. The Cardiac Kid is here.
Thank you. This is Jared Summers speaking. Your cardiac kid.
The Cardiac Kid, even. And then I'm gonna bring it down a couple.
Bring it down a little bit.
Okay.
So
I'm very pleased to be here.
Why are you so soft spoken?
Well,
you don't know Alan.
He's not.
I guess
He's trying to keep it down for the microphone.
Is this
Yes.
radio? Is this your radio voice?
No, the radio voice is more like 1070 WBXY, and this is Deep Purple.
I like that.
Or you can do the, hey, it's Alan Kaye on C93 Kokomo.
You don't get paid for that anymore, so you don't.
I thank God. You know, who wants to get up at 3 in the morning?
Still a good radio station.
Good radio
But
station.
you know, when you're the morning man on a radio station, you're the only one in the county that goes to bed before your kids. You know? And you're up at 3 o'clock in the morning going, oh, making that face and doing the Sam Kennison.
So before we get to Alan, new little thing we're doing here, we're getting people from the community in here to talk about different agencies and organizations, causes, and all kinds of stuff going on. Last week, Wendy spoke about organ donors, and she has put some of that stuff up on the Facebook page, the Indiana Donors Network. She's put some of that up on the Facebook page, and our that podcast will be out this week. But this week, we have Miss Lindsay Davison from the domestic. I screwed it up.
You want to go ahead and let her introduce herself?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and
Go ahead, Lindsay.
because I already screwed it up on Facebook. So.
Yes,
Go ahead.
so I am Lindsay Davison. I am with Family Service Association, the Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Programs.
Awesome.
So thank you for having me. I think it's wonderful
Yeah.
that you guys are incorporating
Thanks for coming.
a good cause with a good time, right?
That's right. That's right. So we're going to have you talk about the shelter a little bit and what everything you guys do. I'll go ahead and let you start talking a little bit, and then if we have questions.
Absolutely. Ask away. That's how we learn, right? So I do run the domestic violence shelter. We provide services to victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. We serve 4 counties. Our primary counties are Howard, Cass, Miami, and Tipton County. Of course, we're not going to turn anyone away, so anybody throughout the state or throughout the United States can call if they're fleeing domestic violence, need a safe place. We're going to be there. With that, my big spiel is that we offer so much more beyond emergency crisis. We are more than a shelter. We have a 24/7 crisis line available. That number is 765-868-3154. We are always have a staff answering that phone. It's never going to press 1 to talk to. It is always a human voice. We offer a plethora of services to offer that additional support needed by a victim, be it one-on-one case management, free of service, even to outside clients. That's key, because we understand that not everybody's going to be able to pick up their belongings, pack up their children, and come stay at the shelter. They may need to just come in and visit and talk with someone one-on-one to begin to kind of process what's happening in their environment, in the relationship. We have support groups that are also free to outside clients. That's Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 a.m. It's a peer-to-peer. It's not counseling based. We're not therapists. We're not licensed, but we do understand the dynamics that is domestic violence and sexual assault, and can help someone work through that. And then lastly, I always like to say we are that emergency crisis, right? So we know that sometimes you do need that safe place to stay, and we offer that, again, all free of charge. We are fortunate that we have funding through state and federal grants, as well as local city and counties. We're a United Way funded partner, and so it takes a lot of money to operate the shelter day in, day out, 24/7, right? We're open. Domestic violence, sexual assault doesn't occur 8 to 5. It's anytime.
Right.
And so it does cost close to $800,000 a year to operate the shelter. So we are absolutely dependent on those grants year in and year out, and it's a great thing, but it's also troubling because you're never guaranteed a grant, right? You write it, I write it, and then fingers crossed that the funding's going to be there and that the funding's going to come timely. And we've struggled with that, especially with the government shutdown recently. All of our grants are fee for service, so we provide the service. And then we're reimbursed for those services. So for right now, I can tell you there are 3 grants that renewed October 1. We have yet to see a dollar of those grants, a dollar of that grant from the state grant. And so we continue now for, what was that, 4 or 5 months now that we're into that grant. We still provide the service, but we've not seen $1 to reimburse us. And it's a struggle for us because if you don't know, many non-for-profits run with limited to no cash flow. And so, we do have a line of credit that we operate from, but then you're borrowing money, you're paying interest, but you got to keep the doors open, you got to pay the staff so they come in and have that crisis line answered 24/7. It's a vicious cycle, but it's needed, right? The need is there.
Right. So if you guys are having trouble keeping up with that, because that was kind of fast.
Man,
I do talk a little fast, so
It's okay. We
No,
just,
that is
we just
fine.
need to know, yeah, what's that phone number again?
765-868-3154. It can also be found on our website, which is www.fsahc.org. So essentially that's Family Service Association Howard County.org.
So the FSA has 4 or 3 different branches. You got the
Different programming? Actually, we have close to 12, I believe.
12.
But you're probably more familiar with Jackson Street Commons, which is the homeless veterans housing. Of course, domestic violence, sexual assault programs, healthy families. We also offer DCS, a program through Department of Children's Services, where we assist with the visitations and monitor that so we can help reunite families. So definitely providing services in a great need. The most vulnerable, right? That's kind of what overall. That's what Family Service Association does.
And
It's
mental
really,
health
absolutely helping the most vulnerable.
I hate to talk over you. I'm
No,
sorry.
you're good.
I'm thinking out loud here. Do you have a few statistics that you can let us go about? Like, what do we got? How many cases of domestic violence are happening in our community that people don't see? I mean, everybody looks at Kokomo Scanner, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
They can look at Kokomo Scanner.
I assure you, you can't scroll one finger scroll without seeing a domestic dispute. And unfortunately, all too often, we're not getting called because they're not ready to leave, and that's the reality of it. So statistically, it's 1 in 4. So I can look around the table of us, and there are 5 women and 3 men. I can tell you that 1 in 4 of us, the women, will be or have been impacted by domestic violence in our life. And the stat for sexual assault is that 1 in 6 men will be a victim of sexual assault. And I think that we've come a long way with the Me Too movement and talking about sexual assault, but it is still taboo. And especially we forget that men, this is not a gender-specific issue. This is not a socioeconomic specific, a race. It affects everyone across the board. So in a year's time, we will serve close to 300 men, women, and children. I think that's key to know too. I think too many people think that we're just a women's shelter. We're not. We absolutely serve men. In 2017, from 2017 to 2018, we saw a 111% increase in children staying at the shelter. That's problematic because that's things that they've endured, trauma that they've seen, trauma that will stick with them, and then we have to figure out how to help them unpack that, right? How to process that so that they don't then continue the cycle, so that they don't turn to substance use, so they don't have mental health issues. How do they then become a productive citizen of society? And that's a lot, right? That's an overwhelming task.
I have a question. How can I help today?
Right, today, so we always have volunteer opportunities from watching kiddos so that moms can get into support group or case management and really focus on that hour with the case management or with support group. Money, reality is at $800,000 a year to operate the shelter, we need money. And I'm not ashamed to make that ask because I think we all have that $5 or $10 to give. It's giving up the Starbucks. It's foregoing a week-long extra on a haircut for guys, right? Girls, we can go 6 months or
Right.
real talk. I've been a year before, but that's okay. And so that leads me to, we've had a Strive for 5 program. It's hashtag Strive for 5, and it's to pay off our shelter mortgage. We started in January, early February of 2017 with $168,000 on the shelter mortgage with a monthly payment of $2,000. We've now paid that off. We have just under $50,000 to pay off on that mortgage, and it's truly been the Strive for 5. It's the $5. Can we get $5 from every citizen in our county and surrounding counties to help us do this? Because the reality is then that $2,000 monthly payment can go into an account, build some interest, so that when we have a government shutdown, when we have delay in reimbursement from a grant, we have funds to pull from to operate to ensure that those services are there when someone needs them, because someo's going to need them.
That's the first time I've heard of the
What
Strive
about
for 5.
some household stuff? Do you need anything I can donate?
Yes, so in addition to monetary donations, thank you, we constantly, these are families that are starting over, and a lot of times starting out on their own for the first time. Many of these, and I will say women in this case because we do serve predominantly women, but they don't have pots, pans, dish towels, sheets, cleaning supplies. I say we have a rapid rehousing program then, so once they get out of the emergency shelter, we can help them financially for rent assistance, but they don't have cleaning supplies, so even, a cleaning bucket and a toilet brush cleaner with some toilet bowl cleaner, some Windex, some rags, a toilet paper towel, because then when you look at food stamps, I can go get food, right? But I can't get any cleaning supplies, I can't get hygiene items, all that stuff we have to provide them. When a client comes into the shelter, we're providing them with their shampoo, their toothbrush, toothpaste, hairbrush, hair tie, clothing products, bras, underwear, sock, clothing, you name it, because when you have to get out, you may have 3 to 5 minutes to get out, and getting you and your children out is what's important. You're not thinking of packing your favorite sweater.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
as far as these monetary and the donation items, is that something we take that to the FSA?
Yes, so for any kind of tangible physical items, they can be taken to 618 South Main Street and dropped off. You can, of course, call our hotline. That's where I office out of, 765-868-3154, and we can coordinate a drop-off if it's going to be, if you work midnights and 6 a.m. works for you. Obviously, we have staff at the shelter that we can accommodate that. Monetary donations, we're fortunate to work with a local company. We have a Strive for 5 purple button on our website. You can go on it, click it, donate your $5 or whatever you feel led to donate. 100% of it goes to that mortgage. The company has worked with us, so they're not taking out any fees whatsoever. 100% of your donation is going to pay off that shelter mortgage.
Awesome.
And how much did you say was left on that?
Just under 50. Last I knew it was 51,000, but I know last month we were able to put, I think, just under $1,000 on it. So I'm going to say confidently 49,000 and some change, and we are determined that 2019 will be our year that we will have a mortgage burning party. Like, we will burn that
Yes.
piece of paper, and it will be such a huge relief, a weight lifted off of our shoulders, so that we can then work on the cash flow issue. It's just the reality of where we're at right now.
This all reminds me of something you and I was talking about earlier. I know that there are people out there who have their own business, and there are people at some big businesses that could give a sizable amount of money because they do so for animal shelters. Animal lovers really get behind when they want a shelter, or we've had one recently upgraded here, and thanks to some people with big hearts and also deep pockets, they've stepped up to the cause and put the money in the coffer to get the deal done. So share with the listeners, Lindsay, what you were telling me, the statistics between shelters for abused and shelters for animals.
So I absolutely love animals. I will put that disclaimer out there. I have a lovely half Shih Tzu, half Poodle myself, and would go to the ends of the earth for her, and probably too much so. She's spoiled rotten.
Is that a shitty poodle?
It is, yes. But I love her so. So we have 92 counties in the state of Indiana, and the last count I knew, there were 126 animal shelters in the state of Indiana. Last count for the same state of Indiana, we have 23 domestic violence shelters for safe shelter of humans. And when you look at those numbers and that ratio of where those are geographically located, then you legit have to travel multiple counties to get a human to safety, versus you can travel to any county within 15 to 20 minutes and get your animal safe. Again, it's what is our priority as a society, and I should have looked it up, but I would be willing to guess that it's like that across the entire United States. And so then we have to ask ourselves as a culture, not just here in Kokomo, not just in Indiana, but where are our priorities, and what are we doing to ensure the safety of our fellow humans?
I have a question about that. I can adopt an animal. Can I adopt a person?
No,
Not
no.
adopt.
I mean, you can.
Not because
Family.
but
You
mentor.
could mentor them. You could,
Yeah.
you could even, yes, if I was out of space and I could then call, is it Wendy, right? Wendy up and say, I have this family in need, could you shelter them? We could do that, but I get that that's a lot of liability. That's a lot of risk. It's also a lot of financial strain. My 14-pound Shih Tzu eats a lot less than a family of 4 is going to, right? And take up a lot less space. So I get the logistics of that and why there probably is more animal shelters than domestic violence shelters. But again, for too long we've tried to sweep this under the rug and not talk about domestic violence and sexual assault, and sweeping it under a rug doesn't stop it from happening, because it's still happening. And especially to our children, right? They're witnessing this, they're enduring this trauma, and it stays with you. And then you have a lifetime to try to figure out how to process and deal with that. And I think, this is my opinion, that's what we're seeing now with the increase in substance use and mental health. People are trying to fill a void, and so whatever makes them feel good, they're going to do it to escape their pain and their reality. So address it now, stop it now when they're early children, right? 0 to 3, 3 to 5, so that then they're a happy, healthy, productive citizen of society.
This community's famous for giving through, say, things like We Care and Toys for Tots, and so many times our
United Way
community.
campaign?
Yes, so many times in our community, Kokomo and the surrounding areas have risen to the occasion. So this might be time for you listeners to say, I can help, or I know somebody that can help, and get a hold of Lindsay and help make this happen.
I would love nothing more, and I agree. This community is special because we do. Kokomo has a plethora, an endless supply of generous people that are always willing to help,
Right.
be it a tornado, be it a campaign, be it an individual family need. And we've seen that with the shelter coming down, paying that mortgage off from 168 to now 50. But we're on the home stretch, and I would love nothing more for this to get done so that we can ensure this service is available here in this county. Again, we are fortunate to have it right here in Kokomo. Miami County doesn't have this. We serve Miami, Cass, and Tipton. None of those counties have a shelter right there in their county to provide this service.
So
I'm here
people-
to say right now, I'll volunteer, whatever you need.
Thank you. I will get
I
with
have,
you.
I have
because-
a storage full of households.
Yes. And then so
And
when
you
you
can have
donate it, then I need you to come in and volunteer to organize it all and put it away.
Okay.
She will.
And real quick, we had a little flash and a nod from Kelly. So I believe that we're going to do some kind of a fundraiser right down here, a benefit.
Yep.
Uh,
We just decided.
we just
You
decided
didn't even
Whether it be money or household
Oh,
supplies,
it could be both.
or
It could be
We
both.
can do both.
We could get some
Right.
entertainment together down
we'll
here.
throw something together and
Is there a
100%.
National Domestic Violence Month?
Yes. April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and that's
Okay.
when we have two of our big fundraisers, which is the Angel Walk. We collaborate with Indiana University Kokomo. And then we have the Little Black Dress event, and we collaborate
yeah.
with Z92.5.
Yes.
You need to get in that.
Yes, we're always looking for men willing
Men
to don
always
a
do it.
Didn't
black
you see me
dress.
in the black dress at
I
like
don't
New
know.
you
Year's?
should have seen him on New
I
Year's
volunteered
Eve.
last year, and Tracy put me down. No, they had the firemen jump in there because of their situation,
Oh, yeah.
political situation last year, and they all jumped in there. But hey, I'll throw on a black dress.
I will too.
I'll be there.
It is. And then October is Domestic Violence
Yes.
Awareness
I
Month.
will not. You've seen better legs on coffee tables than mine. No, I will not.
Yeah, you will.
Yeah.
He's gonna do
Alice-
it.
Never
Alice
say
into
never,
it.
Alan.
No, the thing is though, I think that when we think about what comes top to mind when we're talking about charities, of course, a lot of people give to their church on a regular basis. A lot of people give to their local food pantry on a regular basis. Thank goodness for that. As I said earlier, a lot of people give to their local animal thing. I think it's really cool that you're coming on here to help make people of our community realize it is a problem in our community. You don't see it. If you don't see it, thank your lucky stars that you're not
Yes.
experiencing your child calling in the night saying, I'm fearful for my life and my kid's life, or hearing from a daughter that she was taken advantage of. You're lucky that this hasn't, directly impacted your life. So it's nice that Lindsay can bring this aware because, as we said earlier in the podcast, people around here are willing to help, and you need to be aware that we do need the help to continue this good work that they're doing. And when they're handling it for so many people in a wide area, I'm sure the needs in many areas are great. But the money thing, I think there's people out there that can help and know other people that may. And I think it's great that you're making the numbers and people aware of this.
And there's also a lot of people out there that have experienced this, and whether they've moved on or healed or whatever, you got to remember what you went through. And if you have, anything you can do to help, whether it be voluntary or monetary donations, this is the time to start thinking about that. Not, sorry it happened to you, but you can try to make it better for somebody else.
I think
Sorry.
that's all right. I think it's with what you just spoke to. People get through it, and obviously you're just on some level elated that you got through it and you've moved on, right?
Distance yourself. from
Yes, but there is power in your story, and as a society, we have shamed ourselves and each other to say, why were you a victim? Why didn't you just leave? The whole what were you wearing or were you drinking, which just is a whole nother soapbox I could get on. But when you share your story, you're not only validating you, but you're validating someone else that is struggling, that hasn't even spoken or hasn't even realized that they are in that situation. And so I do want to encourage folks to share their message because it is powerful. There's something that Alan said talking about people fearing for their safety, and so obviously that is a big part of domestic violence, but it is so much broader than that, and that is another, so two kind of points that I have since I've become a director of the domestic violence shelter is saying that we are more than a shelter and bringing that awareness and education of all the other services we offer, but then expanding that scope definition of what is domestic violence. And so it is emotional manipulation, it is financial control, it is beyond physical. By the time it gets physical, it's just because that abuser oftentimes no longer has that power and control. So really understanding just what a toxic, unhealthy relationship is. It's not always a black eye. There are many people that come into the shelter that there is no physical sign of abuse, right? But it is all there still. Not to get political, but recently the definition of what is domestic violence has changed, and it is problematic because we're trying to diminish what is the scope of domestic violence, and it's beyond the physical. It is emotional, it is financial, it is all of it, and it can be beyond intimate partner, right? If you're living with someone, if Kelly and I live together and she's asserting power and control over me and making me pay more money than I need to, or dictating that I've always got to have that towel hanging just the right way and yelling and screaming at me, that is an unhealthy relationship, and that is also that's domestic violence. So
Like the guy on the TV show, what's his name? Sheldon? 'Cause he's like, he's about, he can, right?
I don't know that I would technically put Sheldon in the category of abuser,
But it is, and he's got
but
his share,
it's a
right?
scope of power and control. Because at the end of the day, that's what domestic violence and sexual assault is. It's power and control.
This cause kind of touches home with me because in 2001, my best friend was murdered by her husband. And so I would love to do anything. And I will have this fundraiser. And as a matter of fact, on my 1-year anniversary, I'm thinking about doing a block party. And I'll donate half of all the proceeds
Thank you.
to you guys.
Thank you.
Awesome.
We'll get together on
Yes.
that, but I
Thank
would
you.
love to do that.
Thank you for doing that, and thank you for sharing your why, right? Because
Yeah.
my why is that my aunt was murdered by her son who lived with her in
I
2012.
remember. Yes.
And so
I remember
it does.
that.
It touches all of us.
Yeah.
None of us are left unaffected by this.
I was a
My-
victim also years and years ago, and it is hard to get out. You don't know what to do. Thank goodness I had a full-time job, and I just it takes a while, but then you finally say gone.
Yes. Yes.
And I touched on it a little bit on the last podcast, kind of brought down the mood a little bit, but I grew up in that, in that situation there, so that's my why too.
My aunt was raped many years ago down in Indianapolis. That she actually is from Howard County. They lived in Kokomo, but she now has retired and is now dedicating her life to doing this. She's talking, speaking. She goes to a lot of conferences.
That's wonderful.
But she just a few years ago really said, "This is it. I'm done with this.
Yeah.
I need to figure out a way to move past."
Yeah.
Past. We're talking like 30 years
Absolutely, because
ago. And so now she is a victim. She's an advocate, and I should have called her to come down here. I didn't even think about it. I
Right.
didn't think. But anyway, point being is, and her boys were at home, and her husband was working. He was a police officer for the IMPD, and it was brutal, like brutal. And my mom and her live together, and they are fearful of the smallest drop,
Yeah.
ding,
yeah.
scratch, anything at the door.
Trauma does that to
they
you.
are both, and my mom too. My mom was a victim of that also.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a hard pill to swallow, and that's my why.
It is, but when this is a small group of people around a table. What is there, maybe 10 of us here, less than? And almost every one of us have a story. And so as a society, just in Kokomo alone, we're walking amongst those across the street from us, in the grocery store, at church, in the pew, wherever. We're seeing it, we're just not acknowledging it. And so it's helping one another. We can all be each other's advocate. And the fact that you brought up rape and sexual assault, there's a Kokomo Perspective article, February 6th. Last year, nearly 1 rape a week was reported in Kokomo.
that was reported rapes.
We're
Not, we're not talking about the
Absolutely.
non-report.
Thank
That's the
you.
big
That's
thing.
the
is
key
those
word,
like
yeah.
that.
Thank you.
We don't. We're in a fearful society. We've always have been. People, back in the 50s, if you got raped, it was like, they didn't call it. I'm assuming they didn't call it rape. I don't know.
Right.
But many years ago, it wasn't as big a deal, quote unquote, you know, that they think it is, and that's the one thing that I see. Even she's got friends that have been struck,
Yes.
or everybody's impacted by this in
Absolutely.
a roundabout way. I don't care how it
Absolutely.
is, whether it's an unhealthy relationship.
Right.
I'm divorced, and we were in an unhealthy relationship. Kids saw us fighting and arguing. It's the same thing.
It is.
And it's not that I'm a bad parent or she's a bad parent. We just didn't see eye to eye on things, and life has moved on. But that's the scary thing. You said 1 a week.
Yeah.
That's reported.
That's reported, and the stat is then that 1 out of 100 will ever even be in court and get sentenced. So, there may be 10 of those cases that go into court, but there's actually going to be one perpetrator, one rapist that ever even sees sentencing out of that rape. And so for those 52, right, 1 a week here in Kokomo in 2018, those 52 individuals that were reported, they're not getting justice in our criminal system. But what they can do is reach out to us who are advocates and begin to heal, right? And I know it's just begin, because like you just referenced your aunt, it's going to take sometimes decades, and that's okay.
Sometimes a lifetime.
And that's where the whole start by believing comes in, right? You just need that one person to believe you. When you say, this is what happened to me, you just listen and believe. There's no judgment, and that's not hard to do, right? That's all you got to do is listen and believe, regardless if it's domestic violence, sexual assault. And then we can end that stigma that you shouldn't talk about it, you should have not been drinking, you should have left your relationship.
Right.
It starts by believing and listening.
And with me, I was just mad. This would never happen to me again. This person's not going to get close to me again. It's just people handle things differently. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
Absolutely.
I just, and then on the other hand, we've got, and it's just not women, and I get that, but there are men that are sexually assaulted.
Absolutely.
There are men that are abused.
Absolutely.
And most guys probably won't, most of them don't have the balls to say it.
They won't admit to it.
And I'm not trying to be rude, and then there's no pun intended there.
Right.
But,
Right.
if you've been struck by your wife or your girlfriend, or you've been down, it's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Yes, military. I think there's a lot of men that endure financial abuse because they've got the financial means, right? So then the woman will take advantage of that situation and use it against them at every turn. I'm not saying it's every situation, but from my experience in this field, we've heard that a lot. And so it's, I want men to be a part of this solution too, because I do not want anyone to take away from this conversation that we're saying men are always the abusers and men are always the rapists, because that is not the case. And men are absolutely needed in this conversation to rise us as a society up, right? It's going to take both men and women to say, we're done with this. We demand more to treat our fellow human better.
In a situation that I'm close to, the situation was the woman and the man had been married 10 years. They had 2 children, 2 small children together, and a teenage son that the mother had from a previous marriage. He was abusive verbally, constantly. He was physically abusive. And back then, and we're talking about, back when I was a teenage boy, you only had 1 car per family. So the man would take the car to work after he had been abusive, kept her up all night, crying and arguing, drunk, by the way, would get in the car the next morning and go to work and be gone all day. And when he got off work at 5, he would leave work and go straight to the bar. So she's at home with no way to get to the grocery store.
Isolation technique 101.
Yes, and of course she's opening the mail saying, where's the money for this? Well, he spent the money for that at the bar, so there's no money to pay the bills. And even though it was barely getting by, she was so afraid of him and so afraid of what she may not be able to do once she left him. She had a roof over her head. She had electricity. She had some food, some this, some that. But some, to her, was better than the fear of, she had
None.
no college. She had been a high school dropout. She had no really skills. So if she were to walk,
She had to take care of her kids.
what was she going to do? So it doesn't necessarily have to be breaking an arm or a leg.
No.
It can be 90% mental and be a living hell for a mother and her family.
And I think you described probably 90% of our cases. There was she now works with us, it's come full circle. She lived in Carmel. She was what you would consider the Carmel elitist. Husband made very good money, never hit her, threatened to, and she knew if he ever did, it was going to be game over. But she stayed for so many years out of that fear, and then one day walked out of her house with her purse, picked her kids up from school in Carmel schools, and the counselor of the school says, well, now you and your children are homeless, so now what? And she felt like as big as a fly, right? Because what is she doing? She's just left this very plush home, this very plush living environment outside looking in. And so it goes to show you don't know what's happening inside someone's four walls. But now, I mean, she gained that strength, that courage, and has bettered herself, her children's life, and is now working for Family Service Association as an advocate, giving it back, right? Helping others.
How cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, so that's a big thing also is when you encounter somebody. I stepped out for a minute. I did hear you say believe them, but it's also the way you talk to somebody that. Did I miss all this whole conversation?
No.
Okay.
You're good. You're on point.
Am I just recapping?
Good job, Jimmy.
So, like
Way to be observant.
When you talk to somebody that is telling you this, whether sexual or battery or what have you, like with her, she went and then someone's put it on her. Like, look what you did now.
Yes. It is, that's victim blaming, right?
Yes.
I mean, that counselor had no intention of blaming her or making her feel less than in that moment, but she did. So it is important that you just listen, right? Because our words aren't going to be probably what they need to hear, and they're definitely not going to solve the situations. And that's where you say, let's look up the resource, guide them to our agency or whatever agency you find in your area, and just be that listening, supportive ear. Because you don't know what someone is enduring. You don't want your words to be the reason that they feel less than
Right.
or a victim and go right back. And that's another stat. It takes 7 to 11 times for a victim to leave their abuser for good. Because you have the fear, because in a sense it is a drug because you need them, whether it's for financial reasons, or maybe you do use substances together, so you're going to miss that, or because you need that father or that mother in that children's life, so you think, right?
I felt like I didn't have the support to leave.
Yeah.
What am I going to do?
And that's where the shelter comes into play, because then you realize that you are not alone.
And I never called the police. I'm thinking, well, what are the neighbors going to think?
Right, absolutely. And that's part we have to, if everybody just listens and believes, then we're ending that stigma, so that then we can call the police, we can phone the friend, we can be surrounded by a support system, and know that we are supported in whatever decision we make. And that's another big thing. When your friend comes to you and tells you this, they may not be leaving that day or that month or that year. Don't judge them. Every time you talk to them, don't say, have you left yet? Like, that's not okay, right? Because it's got to be on their own time.
The same thing when you're talking with somebody, no matter what it is, if it's a sexual abuse or battery or a death in the family, the first thing that somebody comes to is, I know how you feel. Well, you don't know how they feel.
No.
You may have experienced the same thing, but everyone
It's different.
reacts different
Yeah.
things. So, and that's like the most generic shut somebody down when they are talking to you, and you hear someone, even if it's something on Facebook or talking, people, I know, their prayers. Oh, I know how you feel. No, you don't know how
Right.
this person's feel. Just shut up and listen for a minute.
Maybe say, what can I do to help?
Yes.
Mhm.
Ask
Absolutely.
That's exactly what it comes
listen
down
to them, and then when it is time, is there anything I can do to help? I mean,
And then, like you said, it might just be lending an ear for
Absolutely.
that person to instead of bitch at their kids or
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
take it out on someone else.
Take it, yes, because that's
You know, because that's what ends up happening.
Yes, that's the reality. We see so many. Again, I'll speak to moms because we predominantly serve females, but we do serve men. Is that they are so encompassed with their trauma and their chaos and the crisis that they have just endured that they can't even begin to, see how it's impacting children and how to then help them cope with it, right? And so being that person for them to be able to unpack it with you, so maybe they're not unpacking it on the children, taking it out on the children.
This is. I'm really glad that you came in. I really
I am
appreciate
grateful that
your
you guys
time. I
invited
know
me.
it's a Sunday, and I know it's and it encompasses
Salary,
your
it
life.
all pays the
There
same.
you go. Right, exactly. And it doesn't matter how many hours you put in.
Yes.
I mean, because you're always putting hours in, right?
Yes,
It's
yes,
24 hours
yes.
a day, 7 days a week.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people just need to get out there and help out, volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just for, just for your own. You're helping others. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the reasons we started doing this with Wendy last week, and then we turned this into a little bit different format because we didn't know where we were going with our little podcast here. But we're hoping that the citizens in Kokomo, Howard County, surrounding counties get to hear all this. That's our little. Not only can we volunteer, he helps veterans, and we volunteer and do this and do that. But we're just trying to get the word out there that this is a big problem. Just because it's small town Kokomo doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
And just because we are the waste of Kokomo,
Right.
we were having fun doing this. Our first 2 episodes for us was a blast. I don't know if anyone else enjoyed it.
Oh man, it's
Oh.
been a great time.
I know
My
they're having.
face hurt every time we laughed. Laughed so hard.
But we wanted to do when Wendy's like, hey, I want to talk a little bit. It was just like
We
boom.
wanted it to get
We got to
deeper.
do this
Yeah.
every week, and that was just brilliant. I'm glad we did that, and I'm glad.
And
you
now
came.
it's not just we're just not bashing or joking around.
We're still
although
gonna do that,
We're still
though.
going to do that. Don't get me wrong.
We're getting there.
But we
We're
want to
getting
make
there.
sure that our community, in a whole, we have to take care of our community.
That's right.
Like I touched on last week, I come back to Kokomo twice. I moved away twice, and I always am like, I hate this town. But then again, at the end of the day, guess where I
Your
live?
roots land you here.
This is where I'm
Yes.
here. That's
Yeah.
why I'm here, and I know everybody's like that. You get drug into the drama and the whatever it is, a political game, but we have companies and we have businesses and we have non-for-profits. A lot of non-for-profits in town. We're a very generous community. I do believe
We are.
We give a lot, and hopefully. By the end of this year, the mortgage will be paid off.
Absolutely, I would love
And,
nothing more. I will.
Yes.
And giving,
Great.
we discussed it earlier. Giving isn't always monetary. It can
Nope.
be volunteer.
Volunteering.
And there's all kinds of opportunities that we discussed earlier for volunteering your time.
We'll
So-
link everything up on the website, on our Facebook page, the Waste to Kokomo.
Okay.
I want you to tell everybody websites again, phone numbers again, and what we'll make sure to get out for you is not only just this word, but we'll all network
Yes.
like normal.
Yeah.
And let's get this thing going.
That
Let's
makes-
get this thing going. And I didn't know. I mean, I've seen you a million times, right? Had no clue what you did.
Right.
Had
Right.
no clue.
Right.
None.
Yeah, that's.
I just
hard,
thought
'cause
you
she
were-
talks
Well, I
all
guess
the
I
time.
need to talk more.
That's the thing. Like I
You
was
gotta have
like,
your own
wait a
time
minute. I
also."
think she's a singer. And then somebody was like, no, she's not a singer. And I was like,
Singer.
damn.
Well, the
But-
funny part is, was she the one that you told me that I booked?
Yeah, you booked her last night, I think.
And I go,
Jared,
was I
what-
drinking when I did that?
You said,
Because
Jared, what the hell is your
It will
problem?
be a, it will
I'm
be
like,
a
I have
sad,
not
sad
booked a
show.
woman
So
when
let's
singer
see,
yet.
Can we hear a little bit?
Can we hear a little tune, little ditty?
Little
You gotta
ditty?
take the beginning of this song. Do it nice. And easy. I do love me some Tina.
So,
Good comeback.
That's a good one.
you're going to go through the websites one more
Yes.
time.
Yep. So I will wrap up though before I get into that. Is we also ordered these bracelets.
I was
We
going to
have
ask you about that.
thousands of them. So literally like 3,000 of these bracelets. You know, the rubber bracelets that everybody has for whatever cause. And so on one side it says Survivor in bold white, and the other side says #Live Empowered. Many of our mission statements throughout our programs is empowering individuals and families, right? The most vulnerable. And so it is tie-dyed, swirled, purple and teal. Purple is representative of domestic violence. Teal is for sexual assault. And so we're giving these away for free. So if anybody is interested, 618 South Main Street, you know, if the seller wants to keep some on hand.
I would love to.
Anybody can wear these. You don't have to be a survivor to wear these, but it's that we create a community that acknowledges that there are those suffering, right? And you're not alone. And so when you see you're going through Target and maybe the cashier has this on without words being spoken, you know that that person can understand your story, whether or not they've been through it or not. They hear you, they see you, they believe you, and that your story matters. Your voice matters, right? That you are to live empowered and leave this place a little better than you found it, and help your fellow human along the way. So if you want that, that's a huge awareness campaign that we have going on. So again, my name is Lindsay Davison, Director of Domestic Violence Sexual Assault Programs through Family Service Association. 24/7, our crisis line can be reached at 765-868-3154. You can go on our website, that is www.fsahc.org, Family Service Association, Howard County.org. If you are interested in donating to our Strive for 5 campaign to pay off the shelter mortgage, A, I thank you in advance. B, you click the little purple button that says pay off the shelter mortgage. 100% of the proceeds goes to pay off the shelter mortgage. There is also a wish list on the website, so if monetary is not your thing, but you've got some extra twin sheets laying around, pots and pans, dish towels, what have you, we accept those as well. So again, 765-868-3154. I thank you to the podcast crew that is Waste of Kokomo. We are not alone in the city of Kokomo for being, the need that is domestic violence and sexual assault, but the need is there. There are those suffering, and we're there to help whenever, 24/7.
Right before you go, you mentioned a couple of events that's coming up. Both in April.
Both in April. We are busy in April. Don't call me in April. I'm just kidding. Don't call me.
So what are those dates again, so that we can
Yeah,
make
so
sure
the
that we...
Angel Walk is our collaboration with Indiana University Kokomo. We have a survivor tell their story. Again, it's about that empowerment, right? It's the survivor to share their story so that others can know that they too can get through this. And then we do a short 1-mile walk down Washington and back to IUK. That is April 16th. I believe it kicks off at 5:30. And then our second one in April, it actually is happening, I believe it's May 2nd or May 3rd, one of those two Fridays, or one of that Friday, May 2nd or 3rd, whatever that date is. And that's our collaboration with Z92.5. It's the Little Black Dress. We have gentlemen who are in the community willing to put on a little black dress, raise funds for a great cause. It is a great time. It's an all-ladies event except for the men that are in the dresses, and that is at the Bel Air. So
Wonderful. We
Yes.
want to thank you for coming on. I know from the bottom of my heart. In fact, I do believe my aunt spoke at the Angel Walk.
Well,
last
that
year.
is a small world full circle. Love that.
Yeah, I do believe that she did. And I didn't get to go to it because
Yes.
I don't remember what was going on.
Right.
I
Probably
can't remember.
strapped up to a table with heart monitors.
Oh yeah, probably. Cardiac kid. Well, thank you very much for coming on, and
Yeah,
we're really excited about. Oh, you got something else?
Well, I just remembered that we also have a 800 number because obviously we serve more than just Kokomo.
Oh,
So
okay.
if you're outside of Kokomo and you need to obviously call a 24/7 crisis line, but you don't want to pay to call, you can call 1-877-482-4222.
And is this that's all 24 hours a day?
That's the same number, 765-868-3154. It's just that we also have the toll-free version.
But it's 24 hours a day.
24/7, always answered by a staff. Even if it's something like you don't have money to pay your heat bill, right? We're going to connect you, right? It's a resource and information line as well. So
Okay.
we've got those resources for our counties and surrounding counties to be able to connect you to the resources you need.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Let's give. You want to
take
go
a
on break?
Yeah, we'll
Let's
take
break here in a
take a
second.
small break.
Let's thank everybody. Thank Lindsay.
Yeah.
for coming out today.
Thank you guys.
We
Appreciate
appreciate you, and we look forward to working with you, adding to our conglomerate of people that we're working with now. Which that's what we're here to do, is make a difference in the world. And we're going to go to break for a few minutes, and then we're going to come back, and you're free to leave, or you can stay around and hang out
Well,
with
I
us.
kind of know this guy, Alan Kaye, so I may stick around
Okay.
for a
All
minute
right.
or two.
Welcome back to the Wasted Kokomo.
Woo!
This is,
Yeah. Golf
You
clap.
guys get an applause sign.
we do need an applause
Oh, we
sign
do.
because we are. We also need a clock in button because we're very we just do what the hell we want. We are like the Bearded Bastards podcast.
Podcasting.
So speaking of the Bearded Bastards, this week the beardless bearded bastard Jimmy Lawson passed away, and there's a spot here, his spot at the cellar is like the missing man. They have a tag for him and a beer setting out there for him. And we'll have Kelly talk a little bit about something she's going to do for the beardless bearded bastard.
Yeah, in honor of Jimmy's memory, we're going to do a plate. I'm going to have a bronze plate or gold plate or whatever the material is embedded in the table at the bearded bastard table,
The bearded bastard.
where he sat, just to show his memory. He was a great guy, and we'll all miss him very much.
Yep.
Gone too soon.
Gone too
Yeah.
soon.
So have a minute here for Jimmy. You don't want to do a whole minute.
No, but
It's not good for on air, is it?
no. But this,
Jimmy would be laughing right now.
Yeah, he would.
This is this podcast and the preceding of the podcast is in the memory of Jimmy Lawson for being the beardless bastard. So this all is in dedication to him. So we want to roll right into our next segment. I hate to bring everybody down. I don't like to be sad, but
We'll move on.
We're
moving on.
We're getting ready to move this on.
Yes.
All right.
We got this this week. I think we ought to name this. We've kind of come up with clever names, or maybe not clever names, for all the podcasts. The first one was Genesis, and by listening to us, you were probably rooting for the snake on that one. But we had fun. And then the Bearded Bastards was just called the Bearded Bastards. Last week was the Superb Owl.
And that one will be dropping here soon.
Yeah, it'll be dropping Friday probably, or something like that.
Whenever we
Yeah,
want.
but by the time you're listening to us, it's already out. So this ain't the radio. We're not talking to you. This ain't Facebook Live. But I think this one here, this next guy, he's master of many entertainment. What I want to say, genres. I don't know, comedy, music, MCing. This guy does it all. Triple threat. That's right. A.K. the triple threat. The triple threat of entertainment here in Howard County. Mr. Alan Kaye. Give it up for Alan, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, friends.
Alan is a friend of mine. We work together on the entertainment.
His only friend.
My only friend. Yeah, and you know, I gotta be nice to him because he is the only one.
He is the only one.
Well, you could take all my friends, put them in a phone booth, they could swing pool cues at each other and nobody get hurt.
So I say,
Phone
Alan.
booth? What's that?
Alan has a band called Alan Kaye and the Tunes, so I say this episode should be Alan Kaye and the Buffoons.
Oh, I like that.
I see what you did there, Jimmy.
See what I did there? All right.
Play on
Very
words.
clever.
Very clever.
So, like I said, out the Howard County Vietnam Veterans Organization, Alan and Lindsay and I work together in the entertainment, helping out the stage stuff, getting the acts together and making sure that they're in and out and on stage on time, and passing out information to everybody at the two reunions at the Healing Field. This year, the Sandbox 5 is June 7th and 8th. We've got all kinds of entertainment set up for that. And then the 37th
It is 37.
Howard County Vietnam Veterans Reunion. It's one of the largest and oldest in the country, if not the oldest and largest in the
We'll
country.
say longest running. I don't want to offend any of the nom vets.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Alan.
Yes, we don't want to do that.
Well, let's talk about the reunions coming up. We got our big one in September. Well, I call it the big one because the Sandbox is only 5 years old and it's grown by leaps and bounds each year, and that's a beautiful thing. And I think that so many people aren't aware that our county, there's probably literally thousands of young vets out there that don't even know our organization exists. And the Howard County Vietnam Veterans Organization has a beautiful history.
True
And-
grassroots.
True grassroots right here in Howard County, and hopefully people will get the word out because these reunions are just amazingly beautiful with the healing, with the camaraderie, with the entertainment. It's just crazy good fun and a good way to reconnect. And by the way, young veterans listening, or if you know any young veterans, make them aware if they will join the Howard County Vietnam Veterans Organization and come into the organization. Their first year of membership is absolutely free.
They charge me double. I can't even believe that.
Well,
There's a reason behind that.
Let's not get into that.
so you can join for free. The first year's free. It's a great organization. But let's talk about June 7th because that's when the party starts. Friday, June 7th, 4:30 to 6:30. Maddie and the Roadies and Jimmy Shaw and Tim Minnick and I have discussed this many times that the Sandbox reunion needed to be filled with music that the younger people would much more enjoy than just the standard classic rock that the Vietnam veterans rely on and want and clamor for.
And we all love the classic rock.
Yes.
Right.
Everybody loves the classic rock, but we are trying to grow this for
All generations.
For all, yeah. For this is a new generation here, and the Sandbox goes from Desert Storm through Afghanistan. So that is a wide range of.
It is indeed, and we Vietnam veteran era vets are not going to be around forever. And as we transition the entertainment and the wishes of the new developments, we want to do it with the younger people in mind that they'll take over this organization and may it live forever. And to do that, in that transitioning, we try to make it just as great as we can make it, and that's why I say let people know they can join up that don't know about this organization. And Maddie and the Roadies is a classic example of three pieces, a young lady and two fellas, to start the afternoon vibe, 4:30 to 6:30 in the sun, you know, and have some good music going. 7 to 9 is Stella Luna and the Satellites from Indianapolis, Indiana. And you talk about some good music. And not just that era music. There's some soul and excitement with that. And then from 9:30 to 11:30 on June 7th, Country Summer. And this is a brand new band of young guys from Indianapolis, Indiana, who enjoy country music. And they really got a flair for playing it. It's a brand new group, and when they were asked to play the Sandbox reunion, they were elated, you know, because it's going to be probably one of their first, if not their first, big gig coming out of the box. And these are seasoned players, even though they're young. And if you like country music, you'll want to be by the stage for that. On June.
How do you feel about that? You're going to be away from the stage?
Well, you know how I feel about country music.
I do, Alan. That's why.
Don't
easy,
you?
Alan, easy.
Don't you? Well, I
Hey.
know. Hey, you can't be everything to everyone.
Tell
And
us
I-
about Ozzy and Joe and
Well, I'm gonna say right now that I'm not a country music fan, although I do enjoy listening to some Willie Nelson, John Prine, or Emmylou Harris.
We got that in common.
well,
Some
see,
old
I
country.
put
Yeah.
him more of
I
a
like
Conway
country,
Twitty
actually.
guy.
Yeah.
You love it.
I do.
I
I like
just-
it all though.
Well, anyway, you'll love country summer. June 8th, Saturday, we start the afternoon with a young group, Awake the Wild. There's some young guys that got together down in Indianapolis, and they play Brownsburg and all around that area, and they've become pretty popular. And then from 7 to 9, that 90s band. Now, they've played it before, and
Yes.
this is an interesting observation, and I think Jimmy will bear me out on this. When you sit down and you try to figure out who to book to play these reunions, it's such a big entertainment thing, and we want to show off the best we can in our area. Because many people come, people come from Washington and California, and you don't want to say, well, here's some guys that play together once or twice a year, and here they are.
Enjoy.
Yeah, you want people to go, wow, we went to this reunion and we went down to the stage and everything was so entertaining. And the case is the 90s band, that 90s
It
band,
is.
that 90s band, the first time they played,
Was that the Vietnam reunion?
yes.
It was.
Yes,
It was. You're
it
right.
was not at the Sandbox the first time. And when they first took the stage, a lot of people around where we were sitting, I heard some of the older guys going, "What? What is this?" And one of the guys turned to a friend of ours and said to Joey, he said, "What is this?" And Joey said, "Look at my son and his wife. Look at
Yes.
Alan Kay's son and his wife. They know all the words to every song this band is playing,
I'm gonna tell
and
you.
they're
It was a
kicking it."
blast.
It was. I've not
They
talked
rocked
to
it so
one
hard.
person that is 20 to 50 that did not enjoy the
That's right.
absolute shit out of the 90s.
And it
band.
took them a couple songs because
Yep.
what I like to do, whether I'm emceeing or just working the stage, is I like to, when the band starts and I got everything I need done, taken care of, I like to go out there and watch the crowd and watch the band together to see how it's meshing.
How's the synergy?
And, yeah, and so for first couple songs, you've seen some of the younger people nodding, and you've seen some of the Vietnam era veterans that were not.
Nodding.
They weren't nodding. They weren't nodding. They were a little, talking amongst themselves a little bit. But I will tell you this: the Vietnam era campers are the ones that got people dancing. Maybe kicked the younger ones along a little bit. Said, "Okay, it's okay to do something besides nod your head along the golf carts."
Was it Mick?
No, he was probably.
Well, I want to say, honestly, I haven't been to the Vietnam reunion in years. I used to go. My dad take me, and a guy named Nels. Oh man, I can't think of his name. He's passed away since. A good friend of his was in Vietnam, and he was in a band here in Kokomo. And he always, when I was little, I remember going, and it was over. I want to say it was off of
Over
31.
behind Hojo's.
Yeah, that's it.
Really?
Yeah.
Howard Johnson in that big
Yeah.
field back there, right? Okay, so I remember that as a little kid, and well, obviously now that I'm involved with a little bit more this year in my life, we'll be out there and enjoy the music, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But
The headliner on Saturday is called the Big 80s. Wonder what they play, he
A
said.
lot of 70s music.
That 70s.
And they're fantastic. Now let's talk about the set.
real quick.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that.
The opening ceremonies at
Yes.
both of these.
Yes.
So their opening ceremony for the Sandbox is a little bit later in the day, or did we do it in the September later this year too?
I know the Sandbox in the past has always been a little bit later.
Okay, so
Like one-ish
Yeah.
Yeah.
in the afternoon.
So before we go on to the entertainment for the Vietnam reunion in September, the third week in September, this opening ceremony, you guys, it will jerk your
It
chain.
hits you in the feels.
Yeah, it does. It does. And just talking about it right now, I can feel it a little bit because if you haven't been by there and seen that big flag hanging out there, you need to. But
When
what
they
you
unfurl
really need
it
to
and
do-
march it out,
It
it's
is.
something.
Oh yeah.
you need to get
It's
involved
awesome.
in walking that out there. Now, I did about 3 years before I actually got in and walked with one because I was always but I wanted to get out there, and me and Cooper went out there and walked one. So,
Cool.
but there's an intro, and it changes every year, and it walks you into whichever era we're talking about. You know, in the sandbox, you know, it'll start off with you know, them invading Kuwait, and then 9/11, and you know they're broadcasting news clips of this era, and just to listen to this and watch that flag walk out there somberly to the post.
Being marched by members, by the public,
By the
by
public,
veterans,
yes.
by civilians, by those that just support and honor what veterans
And we can't
have
say
done.
this enough. The public is invited. You need not be a veteran to attend. You need not be a veteran to be a member. You need not be a veteran to volunteer out there as well. So you need to see the openings, the entertainment. We have
phenomenal.
turned that around.
Yes.
But this opening ceremony, which it changes a little
It's
bit
a
every year.
production. It's a production.
It is a
It
production.
really is.
And it is same routine, different sounds in the background from both the reunions, but it is something you got to see, man.
And
It
then
is.
followed by the color guard, usually from Greentown,
Always
Post
from
317,
Greentown.
Your dad.
American Legion, absolutely. Nothing makes me
317, whoa,
more
whoa.
proud to watch little Mickler, old Mickler in his garb. But the 21 gun salute
I love
and
giving him-
taps as that flag is being raised.
I love
It
giving
is-
him a hard time when
I
he's
do
all
too.
dressed up. So.
Now, can you
I'll
like
drink
take
us
your
all
camper
over
out
with.
there?
Yes, yes.
Does
Yeah.
it cost? Do you need to get a spot?
Okay, now
Most of the spots are lifers. Like most
well
people
in
out there are
June,
lifers,
in June
aren't
it's
they?
different. Okay.
I'm going to the September one.
Okay, the June one is, you know, this is the one that we're building to
Okay.
be what the other one is. Okay,
Okay.
it's the 5th year. Right now, it's first come first serve on camping, and it's all on their website, and we'll put that out there as well.
Now let's say this, because this to me is cool. It's 2 days of camping, entertainment, camaraderie, and the cost is only
$15 for June.
all weekend.
all
weekend.
weekend long.
Oh.
You can't buy a concert ticket to one show
No.
for $15.
For June, the camping is free. It's just the $15 admission. And as long as you keep your little wristband on, you get like the wristbands like you get when you come into a bar that shows you paid admission or what have you. You keep that on, you don't have to pay $15 the next day.
You can go home to sleep and come back the next night to see the entertainment and not have to pay.
And you can
again.
even shower if you want. We don't
I'll tell
care.
you,
We don't care
we
about
have.
You
showers.
don't have to.
Those
No,
are
no.
optional.
And for those that don't know, I mean, you mentioned the healing field, right? This is not just a small little area behind what used to be
The
Ramada
Ramada
and Howard
40
Johnson.
acres.
This is now 40 acres of, it's an old airport with a beautiful stage set up. It is a sight to be seen, and the feeling just is, it's really, I have no words to describe.
And it's a good time. And a couple years ago, remember that commercial we did for the...
Yeah, we were trying to get people out,
trying to
give
get
them
people
rides
out there.
to and fro.
We was trying to get people in and out, and there was a person that was shuttling people, and Lindsay and I cut a little commercial.
Grade A commercial.
That's right. And you got to see me pole dance in the back of a limousine bus. Remember this thing?
Welcome to Facebook Live.
Right. Lord.
I missed that one.
Yeah. So you've got to get out to both of these. Now, the camping situation in September is a lot like what you talked about.
They
It
do
is not-
extended
it is
camping
not.
now.
It is not first come first serve.
It is not first come first serve, and the
Right.
pricing is different. It is $10 to get you in for the weekend, and $10 a day camping. But you need to get in there and you need to request those. There's a lot of those spots that they're gone before it even starts because seniority.
Well, and I think people need to understand like the magnitude. So we have just shy of 1,000 camping spots that are 20 by 40, and they are full. You are camper to camper. Every 20 foot, there is another campsite.
And it's all primitive.
It is all
Correct.
Yes, it
primitive.
is all primitive.
And that weekend draws in thousands.
Well,
Up to 20,000.
up to 20,000, and then there are some satellite campgrounds
Mm-hmm.
across from the main grounds And so, but you still, like Jimmy says, you need to get on it. You need to contact the Howard County Vietnam Veterans Organization and talk to them about procuring you a campsite if you want to be there camping in September.
Right, and I also believe that they're camping at the Greentown 4-H Fairgrounds.
Yes, they are.
Oh, I didn't know
That
that.
is an additional
Yes.
satellite.
In case the satellite lot across the street got full, we can actually.
And there are people that prefer those other satellite camping sites.
And same thing, motels, people that don't want to camp, obviously the motels in Kokomo fill up, but they do fill up. So again, if you're thinking about attending in September, you need to be making those reservations now, and I can't guarantee that they may not already be booked. 'Cause
Yeah, the
people year in
Coco
and year
Motel
out.
is probably booked. I'll bet. I'm betting the Coco Motel is.
And Jimmy,
By the hour.
if we can take the camper out there for you guys, if you would need to use the restroom, shower, whatever, we'll let you guys use it.
Yeah, we got. Yeah,
Yeah.
we do.
I am in need of a camper.
You lost
I'll just-
yours.
I'll explain that later. Moving on, Jimmy.
I just said you lost yours. So now, Alan, we're gonna get back to Alan. He's going to talk about the September entertainment.
Now, and like Jimmy said, the June event is 2 days. The September event is 3 actual days of entertainment and ceremony. However, people actually start camping there a week and a half before. So by the time Thursday comes, literally, the main camping ground will be, I would say, 7/8 full.
It's a beautiful sight.
It's
isn't it?
it's wonderful to see all the different Army and Air Force, Marine, Coast Guard unit flags flying outside Navy outside the.
Wow, I know. What a dick.
Hoorah.
Wow.
Okay, let's talk about Thursday, September 19th. Mark that on your calendar because that's when it first starts. From 4:30 to 6:30 to start the day off, Orvis and Friends.
September 19th.
September 19th, a Thursday, from 4:30 to 6:30, it's Orvis and Friends. And for you people that are hip to what's going on musically in Indiana, Orvis and Friends is Orvis Kirkman, who was the original lead guitar player for a band called the Flying Toasters, which are
We love the
now. So Orvis is going to start. Orvis is going to start off 4:30 to 6:30 on Thursday and kind of get you in that groove with just some assorted musicians, and some of them undoubtedly will be from the Flying Toasters, but it won't be Flying Toasters material necessarily. Thursday, September 19th, 7 to 9, the Beep Line, and I got to tell you a story about the name of the band, because when I first heard the band was called the Beep Line, I thought, being in comedy and stuff, I thought like bleep when they said a bad
What
word,
the beep?
but that's bleep. I'm thinking, and this is the Beep Line, and the lead guitar player is Mark Moran, who was in a band very famously for decades in Indianapolis called The Late Show. And so he decided to start this band, and he said back in the day, and I remember this, if you called a very popular number that was always busy, like say the local radio station's request line, it would constantly be busy, and you would get on that line, and it'd be going beep, 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 and you could hear people in the background go, "My name's Shelley. Anybody out there go to Western?" Or I'm Bob from Kokomo. My number's 20278. And people.
The party line?
Yeah, and no, you could hear. You would have to shout, but you could actually hear, like maybe 10 or 15 people, and guys and gals would get together for dates.
What the
and
hell?
stuff
What
like
the hell
that.
kind of phone were you using? Like a
Rotary.
rotary or
Christ.
like a can?
It was a rotary, you young whippersnapper.
Pass me through to McGarrett.
Yeah, was there a lady? Did you say, "Hey, this is Alan Kaye. I need to speak to so and so," and then the lady would be like, "Hold, please." Click, 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 click. Visual. You know.
I'm gonna tell you.
Between that.
I'm gonna tell you, you whippersnapper. I can remember when the phone number was 4 numbers. 4 damn numbers.
Did that include area code?
Where's no such
There's no
thing?
such thing as area code.
Well, anyway, that's how the Beep Line got their name. They play a lot of early 60s music. and up to just maybe early 70s. So it's really era driven for the Vietnam era vets. They're going to really like it. Then Jimmy and I have had this discussion many times that Thursdays it's hard to get people off their butt and up to the stage. What are you doing? You got the whole time when all our shows are over by like 11:30. You can go back and finish the night, and you certainly got time to do what you want to do at the campsite before you start your evening entertainment. So I said to Jimmy, I think we need something on a Thursday that'll move people. And one of the biggest dance bands in the land has always been Xanadu from out of Indianapolis, and that band no longer exists as Xanadu. They are The Do. And that's who's playing Thursday night, 9:30 to 11:30. So people will be dancing.
They're good.
They've got one or two girls up front singing. Michael Reed, the keyboard player, is formerly with the group Roadmaster.
Oh, yeah.
Also played with Henry Lee Summer and Mitch Ryder. The bass player, Jeff Gardner, and the Do was with the band called the Y Store when they were in their peak and making records.
Yes.
Yeah. So the band is outstanding. The
remember the
vocalists
Y
are
Store.
terrific. And it's
That was my
dance
age.
music, people.
Nice. Well played, gentlemen. Well played.
Oh God.
Now, Friday, September 20th, this is a tradition. The guy's name is Russ Chandler, and I can't tell you how much Russ has given to the Howard County Vietnam Veterans Organization over decades.
He's a crowd
And
favorite.
he's a crowd favorite, and Russ plays guitar and sings to tracks and has typically been the start-off act in the early afternoon for many years, and it was always on Friday. And so we said, let's break tradition, let's put Russ on Thursday. So we put Russ on Thursday last year, and we got so many comments on the website, and when I got there, people went, my sister never gets here till Friday. She wants to see Russ. He's always been on Friday. And I said, well, sometimes you got to switch things up. So this year,
No, you don't.
yeah. So this year,
Some people don't like change.
this year,
White people.
Oh, white.
Russ has been playing on Fridays since telephones were 4 numbers.
And so he shall remain on
So,
Fridays.
so Friday, write this down, Russ Chandler fans. Friday, September 20th at 2 in the afternoon, Russ Chandler is going to entertain
Love
you
you,
for a couple
Russ.
hours.
Man, he's awesome. I love Russ.
What a guy, huh? He has a character.
He is an example of what makes the HCVVO.
I call him the sperm head because his haircut. Well, you'll just have to see.
You
his
have to see
haircut.
it. It's like
He has an enormous braided tail of hair to the middle of his back,
nice.
but the rest of the head is a regular haircut from the 1950s. So
He never. He never got rid of it.
a little snort from Alan.
I know. I was like, no one fakes a snort.
Now-
Snorts are good.
Friday, September 20th from 7 to 9,
Did you skip?
Magic. Oh, I'm sorry.
He can't even read his own
Oh,
notes.
well,
folks.
4:30 to 6:30. I'm not going to tell you who's playing there. I'm not going to tell you
Stay
who's starting.
tuned.
Yes, I'm not going to tell you who's starting off the band stuff on Friday. I'm going to tell you from 7 to 9. Magic Bus is playing. Magic Bus, and this is a band that I think you're going to be really taken in by because they dress the part. Okay, think of Magic Bus, think of the hippie years. Wait till you
Nice.
see and hear this band. They're going to kind of, because of the visual and because of the songs they play,
Take
they're
you
going to
back a
take you
little
back to the psychedelic era. And then on Friday, September 20th, 9:30 to 11:30, Melon Cougar is coming back. The Vietnam veterans said they had to have that act because we put that act on for the Sandbox
Sandbox
reunion,
last year,
yeah.
and people went crazy. And this band, they do some other songs, and
The president has spoken.
they don't look like John Cougar Melonhead, but they
But
they- they
sound-
sound exactly like Melon Cougar, and
And they're all nice. I mean, it's unbelievable.
they have a female violinist that's incredible. Their lead singer is a gregarious, big smiley tooth guy that's
Yes.
just he's just a delight to be around.
He looks
Don
like he'd be
Wilson.
singing on a cruise ship somewhere.
Don Wilson's his name.
He's awesome, man, but he looks like he'd be singing on, he's like all smiles all the time.
All the
Yeah.
time.
Mr. Hollywood.
Yeah, and the band kicks, so
They do.
Yes.
I think everybody's gonna be pleased with that. And then on Saturday, from 4:30 to 6:30, we have Blind Boy and the CNI Dogs. Now, Blind Boy Williamson, I have known just about all my life.
Love him.
He has been into the blues all his life. He's not one of these guys that back in the 80s when it became the thing and everybody said, well, I'm going to start a new band. What are you going to play? Oh, we're going to be a blues band. And it was like, we were like flooded with blues bands, like out of nowhere. Not only locally, but nationally. Blues bands were just everywhere. But they were playing a Stevie Ray, Thunderbirds type of blues and that kind of stuff. Blind Boy Williamson plays
Mississippi.
the basic Mississippi
Maybe
Delta
Delta.
blues.
Very,
Oh, yeah,
yes.
definitely.
And his son Patrick plays harmonica. And they recently won a local competition and actually went down to Nashville, Tennessee and competed in a competition down in Nashville, Tennessee and did quite well. And so they're going to be playing. And I think it's going to be something different and it's going to be something cool to start Saturday afternoon off.
Nice.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I'm excited.
Yeah,
Me
and I'm
too.
glad that we're getting there. I like to see the local people playing, at least at the early slot. And, you know, because, and that will help a lot with letting the public know they're welcome too.
Absolutely. They have
And these guys
fans and
deserve that
friends.
spot. These guys kick ass. They're awesome dudes.
I mean, he looks like a blues player.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
he's got this
I think he
humongous
lives-
white beard
Can't
and a top
understand a
hat.
damn thing he says when he talks.
I do.
I mean, you gotta
Yeah, I've
have
known
a
Brad
translator
forever.
But
for
you've
the
been a
guy.
bartender, so you
Like
speak.
Mikey.
I
You,
speak
yeah, you
Klingon.
speak, especially after
It's called
Budweiser is
Klingon.
involved.
That's
Okay,
what I
it's
call it. Yeah.
Well, and like Jimmy said, you know, everybody's got to start somewhere. When I left Chrysler and operating a deck crane and said to people, I'm going to go be a stand-up comedian. No, I'm serious. No, I'm serious. I'm going to tell you something. 99.999% of the people went, have you lost your
I
mind?
think I'm going to use that one.
Your mine.
And the one person that didn't, her name is Ann Milliken, and her first year of teaching school, Ann Milliken is a huge educator name in this town. Dr. I'm losing my mind here.
Up in here.
Dr. Marilyn Skinner and her were dear friends because they both taught at Bon Air, and Bon Air School was the first class that Ann Milliken taught, and I had started first grade at Bon Air, and I had a teacher named Mrs. Bewley, and she was pregnant, and so she only got through, I think, maybe the first, I don't think she even made it the first 6 weeks, and she had to leave to have her child, and that was Ann Milliken's first shot at teaching school. And I feel blessed that she was my first grade teacher. And we stayed friends over the years, and later she came to some of my shows, and one night I just finished I was doing a comedy show, and it was an adult show, so I was using adult language. And at one of the points, I happened to just kind of flash out into the audience, and my eyes met Dr. Skinner and Ann Milliken's eyes, and at first it was like, oh, you can't say that in front of your teachers, and then I saw that they were laughing uncontrollably, and it was so cool to relate to them. Adult to adult after all those years, but it was just fantastic. Where are we?
You went off on a
said that
tangent.
he
It's
said
okay.
You just got done with Blind Boy CNI
Yep.
Dog on Saturday.
Okay, well then I took a second.
No.
You're fine.
I was just helping you get back on center.
Thank you, James.
That's enough.
Thank you, James. Much appreciated, old boy. From 7 to 9, 45 RPM. Now, we had them before, but we had them on in an early slot in the afternoon, and it was one of those days
Got
where,
scolded too.
well, it was very, very hot, and the attendance wasn't what we'd hoped for to start the day. And these guys are really good. They're seasoned players. They're in my age group. And they remember when phone numbers were 4 numbers. 45 RPM, and these guys play from early 60s, maybe even some late 50s, and I don't think they go much past 66,
No,
67.
I don't think so.
And it's a lot of good Beatles and a lot of good songs that you remember from back then. Their harmonies are stellar, and they're tight musically.
Yeah.
It's going to be.
They killed it. Even at the time, it was hot that day. But I noticed when they were playing, people started coming up. And I think that the ones that know and they heard it, they're going to be talking about them. So make sure you get your lawn chairs out there and be there for that one.
You know what I exclaimed about them the first time I saw them was, I know every one of the songs they're playing, and some of them I haven't heard since I heard them on the radio or on a 45 record at the seashore in a jukebox.
Well,
Wow.
and I think you saying that just resonated for the Sandbox and the '90s band. That's the same feeling that our generation has for the '90s band.
Thank
we
God.
know
Man,
every
I was
one
out
of those
there.
songs.
I was singing to every song. I knew every word.
Very few bands
there.
play
Love
that
it.
kind of music.
That's Brandy chiming in
so
over
that's
there.
kudos to the entertainment
Well,
crew that brings
And
it
I
in.
wasn't alone.
No, you weren't.
And all the people,
I was right there.
all the people that come here for this event to heal and reminisce, and these songs equate the soundtrack to their lives, and they go,
Absolutely.
"Oh man, when that was happening, I was dancing to a jukebox, or when that was playing, I was in the car on my way to California doing, or whatever." You know, I mean, it's a beautiful thing to have that kind of deal going on, and musically to connect with the crowd in the time of the era. And then from 9:30 to 11:30, I'm glad my band, Alan Kaye and the Tins, are coming back
Right
to
on.
finish off the weekend. And I gotta say this. My band loves playing this gig, and when we first played it, everybody in my band went, "Wow, that's one of the best gigs we played all year." Now, seriously,
my heart happy.
well, because it was outdoors, it was beautiful weather. As far as you could see were people, and in the back, the golf carts, people parked in them listening, people standing listening, having a beer, people sitting on to the side of the stage. Everywhere you looked was people, and my band is not only only incredible musicians, they're incredible performers, and the size of that stage and the size of that crowd, and hearing that applause, it makes them even want to play even more.
And I'll interject on here. They're great performers, great entertainers,
Absolutely.
great musicians.
Please
and,
tell me you're going to bring Joe.
And
Maybe a little.
and they're all great people. They're all great people. The whole band, they're just the nicest. I mean, and most entertainers that come back there are, but Alan's band, Kevin, love Kevin. And I'll
Thanks,
tell you,
Jimmy.
I'm gonna.
They're
we
good.
done-
They are.
I just want to, real quick on Kevin, okay? One year, had Cooper out there with me, my son.
I
who's
got to
6.
witness this. This is good. This
And
is what the healing field is all about.
Cooper and Kevin were both wearing Batman shirts the same day. They didn't even know each other. Okay?
Kevin Silva, my keyboard player.
Yeah, Kevin Silva. Kevin, at one time, had the world's largest Batman collection. And that day, he didn't know me other than I was at the stage. I was friend Alan's, and he said, "Hey, come to my house." He invited Cooper and I to his house, and we showed up. I mean, like quick, like we went. He's like, "Oh shit!"
No, this guy really
that
showed up.
night, that night we showed up.
We were there. We met him. We beat him.
You beat him home?
We beat him home that night.
And this, if you give me an invitation, it's immediate.
So, and Kevin is like Midwest renowned on fixing sound equipment.
He owns Uncle Albert's Amplifier Repair in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
He and his father and uncle are famous electronic inventors. His father built one of the first radios commercially sold and designed it. Kevin has had people like Ted Nugent and Joe Perry fly their amplifiers to Indianapolis and be delivered to Kevin's for him to fix them, because He is the only one they trust to fix
Right.
their
That's awesome.
That's
electrical.
So when you
equipment.
go to his house, he brings you in through that shop first, and there's just stuff everywhere, tagged, ready to be picked up, tagged, ready to be shipped, tagged to be fixed, what have you. And so then we got to go down into Kevin's Bat Cave, and this thing was amazing. And I did like a little Jimmy Shaw interview with myself while Kevin and Cooper were playing and talking Batman. I was walking around this place, and he had everything. And I believe that collection belongs to the Indianapolis Children's Museum right now.
Yes, Kevin, 3 years in a row held the
Wow.
Guinness World's Book record of the largest Batman memorabilia collection in the world 3 years in a row. And every year it was a bigger number. He had to actually go down and inventory everything he had, take pictures of it, identify it, the maker, the value, the this, the that, the other, to make it official for Guinness. Well, in the process of this, like Jimmy said, he got a lot of attention and was on the Indianapolis News and this, that, and the other. And when Kevin decided that he was going to get rid of the collection, the Indianapolis Children's Museum said, "We want to buy it." And so it's neat that he sold it to an entity that is going to be able to keep it right here in our home state. But what Jimmy can't and I can't get across to you listeners is, when you go see it at the Indianapolis Children's Museum, you're going to see like maybe a
Portion.
a 20th of his collection or
Yeah,
something,
yeah,
because
yeah.
they don't have the room
Oh,
to devote
really?
to it.
Yeah.
His whole basement, walls, ceiling, cabinets, displays, was Batman memorabilia.
He even had a bookcase that you could slide, and he went back to another little room back
Yeah,
there.
hidden.
Oh wow.
Another room, and I think there was like some kind of
True
range
Batman
or
style.
something there, wasn't there? Yeah. But he had like the phone, like a replica phone
Bat
of the '60s era bat phone.
Wow.
And it was a replica, but he had a lot of originals from the series, and had a lot of originals from the movies, and then there were like toys and collectibles.
Comic books too.
There wasn't. He probably had comic books.
He
but-
had Batman pogo
Drum
stick,
set.
Batman drum set,
Drum set.
Batman
Oh.
Yeah, you would love
figurines,
that drum
Batman. I mean
Look at
everything.
Brandy's like, woo!
And
I thought Ric Flair was over there. Woo! Go back.
yeah, you couldn't believe it. And he had stuff on the ceilings displayed when you looked up. He had met Batman, Robin,
He
and
met Adam West, and
yes.
he had a story. He told me a story about Adam West where he wrote a song. Right, he wrote a Batman song. He wrote a Batman song, and when they did something for Adam West, and they put it on this thing.
It was on the release of these Batman series DVDs, and
Yeah.
one of the accompanying DVD was a whole story about Kevin and his collection, where they came in with
Very
Hollywood
cool.
cameras and did all
Yeah.
this. So when he actually finally met Batman in person,
Adam West was like, I know this guy.
I know who this guy is, and Kevin
and,
went,
and his people
"You
were
know
like,
me?"
Oh,
his people were like,
wow.
no, you don't, no, you don't. He goes, yeah, I do, yeah, I do. And then they got it out that
Kevin
he
was on the
remembered him
DVD.
he remembered him from that
Very cool.
collection. So Adam
Wow.
West remembered Kevin, and that was a good thing.
Now
So I
with
got
AK and the tunes.
AK and the Tunes,
Yeah.
AK and the Buffoons.
Well, Kevin is
Buffoons right here.
just one of the members. He not only is electronic genius, he is
John, I like
a
John.
keyboard player and also a guitar player. John Dinwiddie, our lead guitar player. George Bauer III, our bass player. Greg Bond, our drummer. And our female backup singer, Kaylee Dinwiddie, is my keyboard player's daughter and my lead guitar player's daughter-in-law, because Kevin's daughter married the lead guitar player's middle son,
Very cool.
which is very cool. And
Keeping in the
like
family.
like Jimmy said, it sounds braggadocious, but Jimmy just backed me up.
Yeah.
They are beautiful people
They
off
are.
stage, as well as being talented musicians.
Yeah.
Now, now that we've plugged both of these reunions, remember, it's open to the public. It's very, very inexpensive for you to come out and see the entertainment, and it's a great time. Okay. Now I'm going to shamelessly throw it to Jimmy Shaw to help me co-promote and shamelessly promote our upcoming Pogie Bait Comedy
Ogie
Night.
Bait Comedy. That's right. The Howard County Vietnam Veterans Organization is in a transition period. Al and I got together with Hoosier Acoustic, local band, and a couple other local comedians. And we're going to have it's called Pogey Bait. It's on March 30th. It's at the Howard County Vietnam Veterans Grounds, and it's a benefit for the grounds itself. Without getting too far into the politics of organizations, I'll just reiterate that we're in a transition program, right?
Yeah,
Lindsay?
transitional phase.
There's been some major changes that have been very popular and very unpopular at the same time. But we are, the three of us, and several others there, a lot of people are in organizations and they have agendas or what have you. But I can say that these two, Denny, Tim, we're all for the organization. We don't have sides, in
The
the
brotherhood and
politics.
the sisterhood, right?
Yeah,
Regardless
yeah.
of your military
We want
status.
to we want to raise some money and give it all to the organization, and we want to have fun doing it, and we're going to be doing comedy, and we have a band.
That's right. And we have Brandy is the drummer for the band.
Woo!
Woo! Yeah, there she is doing the Ric Flair again. Woo! You missed the Alan's Ric Flair introduction at the
Oh,
beginning.
I'm
so,
sorry.
but I can always do it again.
He's great, brother.
Holy, Alan just ripped his shirt off.
This-
Put it back on.
yeah, this is.
Put it back.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Who are you talking about? I've seen you shirtless at a fight.
I was down for the count.
You were KO there.
I was
cardiac.
KO there, buddy.
So
That's where cardiac
it's
kid
March.
comes from.
It's March 30th,
March 30th. At
8
the-
p.m.
8 p.m. at the Howard County Vietnam Veterans Grounds, and
10 miles east of Kokomo on 26.
that's right. So it's easy to find. You've probably driven by there and seen all the campers, and there's a sign out there that says "Honk if you support the veterans." And that's one thing when you're out there, whether it be for the reunions or just out there, farting around, and the people drive by and honk, and it just gets you.
Gets you in
The
the
old
feels
hearts.
again.
And all the money for this night goes to the organization. Nobody,
100% of
the bands and the comedians are donating their time. So come out and get a good laugh and party with us and hear
right.
some good music.
That's right.
And I think all the members of the band are veterans. Is that correct?
4 out of
Most
5.
of them. Yeah,
Okay,
4 out of
sorry,
5.
4 out of 5.
4 out of 5
Eight-
dentists
Four,
recommend.
4 out of 5 ain't bad.
So, and I tell you, and Hoosier Acoustic, we're going to try to get them on next week with Brandy here, who we didn't introduce. You want to go ahead and give
Hi,
it? No,
Well,
say your,
no, you can say your name.
doggone name.
I'm Brandy Christensen.
So Brandy Christensen is going to be our guest as the Mental Health Association of Howard County next week, and a member of Hoosier Acoustic.
Right on.
So, we can say it like that because
Because we
That
do
is
what we
next week.
want.
We do what we want.
Segue, lead
Like the
in.
bearded bastards.
I feel that.
Can I ask Alan Kaye a question on the spot
Yeah.
regarding Howard County Vietnam Vets Organization? I've asked you this question before, Alan, but you answered it so poignantly, and I'm hoping you can share with the listeners.
Oh, don't mess it up this time.
So we call it the healing field, right? And it was for all those that enter. This is a healing field, not a fighting field. What does the healing field mean to you? And for those that don't know, Alan Kaye, you are a veteran yourself. So what does the healing field mean to you?
Boy, I don't even remember what I said. I know what's in my heart, and that's this. I joined in 1969, not knowing at all really what I was going to be in for. I'd actually, because my real father had been in the Navy and his ship was sunk off of Okinawa, and he was one of the luckiest guys that made it back alive when that ship was sunk. And I had originally went to enlist in the Navy, and I went and took my
Brandy's
What?
a Navy vet.
I went and took my my physical and my mental test, and I was fresh out of high school. I'd ran cross country. I was 6'1" and weighed 135 pounds. I was in great
Slim
shape.
and trim.
Great shape, and
6'1"
passed it
and how
all.
long?
Well, my folks were going through.
135.
My folks were going through a bad divorce, and I wanted to get out of town. And being 17, I wasn't old enough to get a job at the factories. All make you be 18. And I was tired of living in a household full of fighting, and I just passed the test and thought, here we go, the Navy. Well, I took the test and a month went by, and I went back down to the recruiters, which back in that day was in the upstairs at the old post office downtown.
Did they have a telephone?
Yeah, but it was 6 numbers by then.
Okay.
They had added Gladstone.
I just wanted to know.
They had added Gladstone GL, which is 45, whatever your number is.
Ooh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the Navy, I go to the end of the hallway and I walk into the Navy recruiter and he's talking with people and I sit down with him. I said, hey, what gives? And he said, look, man, Vietnam's really popping. He said, people are joining the Navy and the Air Force and the Coast Guard. They're joining anything that they don't have to go in the Army and go to the meat grinder. Now, this was a guy that was being blunt honest with me and said, he said, he said, it's never been like this. I've been a recruiter the whole time I've been in. I've never had my quota 7 months ahead. And I've got my quota 7 months ahead, waiting. So he said, now, however, if something comes up, I'll call you. So almost another month goes by, and I go back down, and he tells me the same story, and he says, look, if you're in a hurry to get out of here, he said, if any other branches interest you, we're all in the same game. I'll transfer your paperwork, and they'll be glad to have you because you passed flying colors. So I said, okay, and I went down the hall, and the next guy down the hall was the Air Force. And I walked in there, and I thought, I went to Mechanical High School, and I knew base brats, and I'd been off and on the base, and the Air Force wouldn't be too bad. He told me the same story. People don't want to get drafted. They don't want to go in the Army. They're signing up. I've got my quotas for 10 months ahead. Now, at the end of the hall was the United States Marine Corps recruiter, and downstairs, 2 flights of stairs, and down to Main Street, and all the way down to the square, and over to Buckeye Street was the Army recruiter, and I thought, I ain't walking that far. I got what it takes. I'm going to go be a Marine. And I walked in there, and I told the recruiter my story, and he said, the Navy guy down the hall's got your paperwork. And I said, yeah. And he said, I'll be right back. And he came back, and he had my paperwork in his hand, and he said, looked at the day, and he looked at me, and it was Tuesday morning, about 9 in the morning, and he said, when you say you're in a hurry to get out of here, how quick did you want to leave? And I said, well, as soon as possible, Sergeant. And he said, I'll be at your house 5 a.m. Thursday morning. 2 days later. And off I went to the Marine Corps. Now, it's a long story, but I got to the point, because I had so many school things and schedule things, by the time I got orders for Vietnam, I came home and told my folks goodbye, and I had 30 days leave coming to me, and they only gave me 5 days.
Wow.
And I had to get back. And when I got back, and I stood on a tarmac with 700 people, everybody got called off, one at a time, and got into these cattle cars with their sea bags, and off they went until there were 8 of us left. And the 8 of us didn't have 13 months left to do in the Marine Corps, and a tour of duty of Vietnam was 13 months. So by luck, God's grace, whatever you want to call it, the 8 of us weren't going to have to go to Vietnam. And 4 of the guys were so mad they couldn't see straight, and my cousin's over there, my brother's over there, or whatever. And the gunnery sergeant said, well, if you'll re-up for 4 to 6 years, I'll catch you up and you can go with your guys. And 4 of those 8 guys chose to go.
Wow.
Now, I've known many veterans, and a lot of them I've known before they went to Vietnam and after they got back from Vietnam. And not everybody I know came back the same person they was before they left.
Yeah.
And some, you're right, Jimmy, and some didn't come back. Now, although I don't know that horror, I was in Amtrak's, and for a short while I was with the 3rd Marine Air Wing, and I would see planes that were enormous, and they would open up, and all you saw was aluminum coffins and flags. So when I go out to the vets, I look at people that have seen things that I haven't, but what I saw was enough to make me understand why there needs to be healing.
Yes.
So when I go there, it's so cool.
It is. It is.
It's so cool.
And I'm
It's
gonna,
a great time, and
It is. It is a great time for anybody. Like I said,
Yeah.
Reiterate what we've all said. First of all,
Thank you.
thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, well, thank all of them, and people
No,
people
right,
don't
no.
get it.
My
I don't
dad
know.
was a Vietnam vet,
A lot of people
so
don't get it.
I grew up knowing a lot of stuff, and so thank
We were
you
kids.
for that.
I was a kid. I was 17 years old, and when I got the orders, I was 18, and I didn't know diddly squat.
No.
I knew how to stay alive, and I paid attention, and I knew what I had been taught. But by and large, we were all kids. And when I look at
Oh,
kids,
yeah.
I look at kids at 18 now and
Oh.
think,
Yeah.
what? You're
I
not prepared for what you're
And
about.
no disrespect, you didn't need to go at 17 years old. Not there.
Well, yeah, and
Yeah,
but
that's what
That's
you
a
said.
Yeah, that's what I'm
generation's
saying.
difference.
my
Yeah.
dad,
You're
my
not
dad
ready.
lied. My dad lied about his age. He was 16 when he went in the Navy, and his ship was sunk. And I gotta say this. I just gotta say this because this will blow your mind. It does me every time I get to tell the story. My dad was dying of cancer, and at the end of his life, he told me he was dying, and he said, "I don't want you to tell anybody. I'll tell who I want to tell when I want to tell, for my own reasons." And so I knew about it for a while. And one day I said to him, Dad, I can't believe how well you handled this. And he goes, what do you mean? And I said, well, you've taught me a lot of things. But I said, I think if I knew I was dying of cancer, I'd be going, why me, or why now, or woe is me, or what, or freaking out and not being able to sleep or eat or whatever. I said, how do you handle this? In case I ever have to face this, what would you tell me? And without a comma, he didn't stop to think about it or nothing. He said, I'm not looking forward to it. However, I've lived 50 years longer than the boys that went down on my ship that afternoon. And I just went, this guy's John Wayne. He's my old man. But what a beautiful way. That shows you how at peace he was with himself and his life. And what a beautiful way to look at it and say, hey man, I lived 50 years longer than those guys.
There's perspective.
So that comes into play when I go out to the veterans too, because I bought a brick and placed it out there at the Memorial Garden for my father. But I'm saying everybody that comes out there has got a story. And when I started helping with the entertainment, there was a lot of times on the stage everybody would be crying and doing all this stuff, and I said, no, this is a healing field. We're here to party and remember those that are not here, and to celebrate the fact that we're here and that we get to see each other. And a lot of these
Another
people
year.
don't get to see each other but once a year. So how cool is that? And they look forward to it and go, hey, I'm going home. I'm going to the field, for a week. And like I said, they're camping out there. The events don't start till Thursday, but let me tell you something. Go out there a week and a half before that Thursday. They're already coming in. Some over here, some over, and then it just starts filling it. I would love for somebody to have cameras set up
Do a
high
time lapse.
and do the time lapse, because
It's beautiful.
it's and like I say, when I stand at the far east end of that thing and get in a golf cart and I start driving when the sun's setting down,
Thank you. That's what I want to
and
do.
you're going down and that
There's
dust is coming up off the road, and
There's
you're in
nothing
that
more
golf
beautiful.
cart. You're in that golf cart, and there's that haze of that sun out there, and
And you see
just
hundreds of American
It-
flags
it's just,
waving.
it's like American flags, an engineer unit flag, a Marine
Yes.
Corps flag, a
Yes.
fighting Seabees, a blue bus with Seabees, an Army a cannon with some Army guys. I mean, it's just a cool thing. It's almost
It's decorated like
it's
a
almost
tank.
like a religious, it's a
It
spiritual
really,
thing.
it is spiritual.
It really
And
is
the
spiritual.
helicopters going.
Oh,
Yeah, and when they sell on the helicopter rides and you hear that bum, 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 they come by, you just go,
Yes.
well, what?
It's reunion time. That's. I mean, it is. It's
The
the
sound of the
thrill my soul.
helicopters flying, and you'll see them go. They'll during at least one of the opening ceremonies, you'll see them flying right towards that flag I was talking about earlier.
And the sound.
Just the sound of them.
You'll never forget that sound once you hear that
and
sound.
then the sight of them around that flag.
Now something about the helicopter rides. I think they're $100. I think.
so.
Right.
And, but these guys have restored Huey Helicraft and worked to preserve the Huey Helicraft lifestyle and remembrance of those units. Medevac units taking people out. Papa Smokes coming in to rescue people. I mean, it's part of that whole history, and to be able to see it and hear it's a cool thing.
Right on that, it is $100, and it's not just that day. Wherever these guys are set up, I've seen them set up at the Grissom Air Force Base.
For the air shows, yeah.
For the air not even just for air shows. Sometimes they're just out there for helicopter rides. And if you pay this $100, you can ride it again somewhere else.
And
Yeah,
a lot of that
yes.
money goes back into preserving them and taking care
Yes.
of them and doing this, that, and the other, and keeping that alive. And I think that's
I was
really
just
cool.
driving by and I seen them out at Grissom one time, and I swung in there to see what it was all about, and they said that, you know, it's $100, but then if you see it somewhere else in the state or what have you, you can ride it again.
And I can tell you, as the younger generation, right? My dad is a non-vet, never served in country, but the fact that he was able to share with me a piece of his history that is the Huey helicopter ride, it's this instant connection, a understanding, a bond that is created through a $100 helicopter ride.
I'm sorry. I'm just seeing Ozzy and Kelly. I mean, I know you and I know your father, and I could just see that. Lindsay, look out the door, darling, don't get too close to the door. You might be blown out.
It's pretty spot on, actually,
yeah,
because
it's very spot
they
on.
do a bank turn, and I'm like, what is happening? This is not okay.
You're flying.
Lindsay's dad is the Mick, man so big.
It's fantastic.
He's got his own his own vocabulary about him. But
It's an
even
experience.
better, I mean, if I ever had a sandwich named after me, it would be like that would be like my life is complete.
Yeah, Dad's
but
life is complete.
Mick has his own sandwich at
Greentown Circle Pizza in Greentown, Indiana.
Name
Go get
drop.
the Mick.
Go Get, and I did.
And
I
what
did-
is on the Mick, please?
So it is essentially a stromboli, but it is pepperoni, sausage, ham, pizza sauce, cheese.
A heart attack on a bun.
Toasted up real nice,
Love
like,
it.
real nice.
Cardiac kid.
Jared, stay away.
And
Easy there, cardiac kid.
I have my membership for the American Legion is post 317 in Greentown, and we've done a couple comedy shows there. I love everybody there, but they didn't serve food. So a couple times that we've been there, I tried the Chinese food across the street. I like the Chinese food across the street, but then
But
I
it's
had,
not the Mick.
but it's not the Mick.
That's
And-
why I want the Chinese food to be across the street. Oh yeah, across the
Yeah.
street.
So I did have the Mick, and I don't, I hope he's probably not listening. He can't even spell podcast. But I did enjoy the sandwich.
It's on you.
It's all on you.
It is all on me.
Yeah.
Okay, now we've talked about a lot of the stuff that we are doing out at the grounds and stuff, but Alan, whether he knows it or not, Lindsay actually at one of the comedy shows invited me out to the grounds and said, "Hey, we need this new young blood in there," and she's probably regretting it to this day.
Real talk, that's truth.
But I did go out
Not
there
at all.
and I got involved in it, and I've done some MC and I've done the comedy and stuff, but I've learned a lot from Alan. Okay, he's like, I haven't ever told you this because your fucking head gets real big. And,
I've totally enjoyed listening to him. I
I know,
could
I know.
probably listen to him talk for hours.
As Alan puts on
I'm
his
serious.
shades,
and we
leans
probably
back.
can
That's
because
just where I'm at right now.
because oh no, we're getting to that point. Okay,
Okay.
I'm directing this podcast that way. Okay, we've done. We've talked about your story about joining, man. I could see where it touched you. It touched me. That was awesome.
Yes, it
Yes.
was.
We went out there. I went out there and I met Alan at the grounds, and I hadn't been to the reunions. When we were little, we stopped out there at Hojo's. I think one time I went to the Speedway when I was out there. But I
the
just
Mud
wasn't-
Bowl.
But I,
Yes, the Mud Bowl.
but I wasn't a
My
regular.
first one was at the Ramada.
Yeah, that's what we're talking
That was-
about.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what we're talking where it started. So I wasn't out there a bunch, but I went out there. Lindsay invited me out there. I got out there and met Denny Cleveland. I love Denny. Love the shit out of Denny. Cleveland, all right, whatever. Don't
Sorry.
Yeah. Wow.
Old habits die hard.
Cleveland. He
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
care
yeah,
what you
yeah.
call him as long as you call
Hey,
him.
he is the grandfather of the founding father
He
of the
is.
Howard County
He's one of the
Vietnam
founding
vets.
fathers,
Yes.
and I'd like to have Denny on here and some of those guys, Kenny Maggot.
Yes,
all
yes,
them.
yes.
Yeah, for sure.
But Alan does, I've had like in comedy, John Brandon kind of helped me more than
John, good guy.
And he probably, John is a clean comedian, but he is funny, and I would never label him clean comedian because he is a comedian.
Right. Right.
But he is a different comedian than I. But he helped me a lot, guide me that way. And then so going out there, I'd done some of the MCing and stuff, and I learned so much from Alan. And so a lot of times we hang out, and sometimes we hang out.
Oh Lord, I could only imagine.
It's not like that. It's not like we're naked or anything.
It's not what I was talking
Okay.
about.
Do you want to get naked?
That's just you, Jimmy.
Yeah, just you. Yeah.
So we
You'd
hang
like to
out.
be
We hang
hanging
out
out
a lot backstage, and we talk and stuff. And it was like, I forget how many years ago, but Kevin from the sound. Remember Kevin?
Yes.
And we were hanging out by the sound
From the
truck.
sound company, he was strange.
And so we were just sitting back there and we were talking, okay? And Alan has, in his comedy, he opened for Chicago, he opened for Ozzy Osbourne, he has a Joe Cocker tribute band, he's got all these stuff. So we're sitting there and we're talking, and all of a sudden, Alan, with his round glasses on,
Yeah. His
just-
Ben Franklin glasses.
well, no, his Ozzy Osbourne glasses, okay? 'Cause
Well,
he
you
just
know.
he
Ben
just
Franklin.
drops into this story. He told a little bit about Chicago earlier and getting to do all that stuff, and we're gonna let him talk about all this stuff. But
Oh, yeah.
he dropped into Ozzy. And he was talking Ozzy, he was speaking Ozzy, and then he was telling stories about opening up for him and how Sharon was like this dictator and
Crazy
running stuff.
woman.
Power and control.
But he was doing this conversation where she's dictating all the stage hands and everything on and saying how everything's going to be, and then he's talking, Sharon, and way better than my Ozzy thing. Okay, way better. I mean,
I think you should go on the road with
you
this.
think I should?
It
I
was
should be
pretty-
the Ozzy. I could be
it
on
was
the.
sad.
Yeah, she's got her. Show that to Alan. This is the visual part of the podcast that you're missing out on. But I just rolled, and me and Alan, we clicked, and I love Alan. You've helped me out a bunch, but I love listening to you. Like Kelly was just talking, and Lindsay knows your stories. You're a storyteller.
I could listen to him all
above
day,
and
every
beyond.
day.
But so
Love it. Love stories.
talk about how you started. You're out there in was Chicago what you first opened up with? Or
Well,
did
actually,
Ozzy
when
or-
I first started, I was working. I got working just by chance because I knew Asher Ben Ruby, who became the Mighty Atom Smasher, the lead singer of Roadmaster, and they had a band called Pure Funk, and they were just on fire, and they were playing this place called the Red Fox down in Indianapolis, and I went down to see them one night, and Asher said, come over here, I want you to meet the owner. So he takes me over to meet the owner, and the guy's name was Bud Spilker, who's passed on, rest in peace, Bud. And Bud, he said, this guy you've been telling me about? And Asher said, yeah, this is him. And he said, people tend to leave when my bands go on break, and back then it was strictly 45-minute set, 15-minute break, 45-minute set, 15-minute break, 4 times a night in all the clubs. And he said, I'd like you to go up and do comedy on the 15 minutes so that all the people don't leave. So I didn't have anything prepared or anything, but he said, when the band goes on break, I want you to get up and give me 10, 15 minutes. And I looked at Asher, and he put his arm around me. He said, you're going to make some money with me, kid. And I said, well, what am I going to do? And he said, just do some of the shit you do backstage. Do the impressions. Do some stories. So I went, it was like almost immediately, like a movie. It was like, you're up. And I went, okay. And so I just went out and I did I just did stories and impressions, and I bowled them over, and I walked off, and Asher says, you get $100 a night and food and drink. Now we're talking about 1972. That's a good pop for
It's a
somebody.
good year. It's the year I was
That's a
born.
pop for somebody that.
If you can pull that shit off today, that's a good payoff.
Yeah. Yeah.
$100 a night.
Tell me
Way
about
more
it.
than I get paid in Michigan. That's all I'm gonna say about that.
and it just kind of blossomed from there. And then one night I was playing in a club, and this old guy came up to me, and he had on a real slick shark skin suit, and he was a real little short, skinny guy, and he had a fedora hat on. And he said, "Hey, I got a string of clubs I book, and you're too good to be playing in these joints. How would you like to come make some real money?" And I said, "Well," and he said, "Here's my card." And it said Top Flight Entertainment, and it was a top hat and gloves and a cane.
Nice.
And it was like, what? You know? And so I didn't think much about it. And the next day, I got on the phone and I called, and this guy booked exotic clubs, dancers. And so I called a friend of mine who's
Can you laugh with a heart on? I don't even know what's
well, I'm telling you what, it's pretty crazy, because what happened was, before I knew it, a pool player in this town named Steve Oakes called me up, and he said, "I want you to come down to Indianapolis with me." And he took me to the Harem House East, which was an exotic club that was in the parking lot of the Lafayette Square shopping mall back then.
Oh my God.
And it wasn't just a booby bar. It wasn't just a little. These chicks would come in with 3 or 4 outfits per set and work all week long and do all this exotic stuff. And the next thing I know, I was making $500 a week, and going from Peoria to Chicago to Iowa to Nebraska to do this, that, and the other. I got out of that and started doing a band, singing with a band from here in Kokomo. I did bands for a while. I went on the air at WIOU, which back then its sister station was WKMO, which became Z93. I was a disc jockey, and I bluffed my way into that job. I read in the paper they were looking for announcers, and I just went out and I said, "I don't want to be just an announcer. I'm a DJ. I know my music, and you know I can do some voices and stuff." And he said, "Oh, really? Well, come on back." And he said, "This is Bill Gardner, our program director." And he told him about me, and he took me back into a room, and he put up a reel-to-reel tape and said, "There's the button that turns the mic on." And he went over to the teletype and he ripped off some news. "Here's some news stories." And he said, "And here's the Sunday paper. Pick out a couple ads and read them like they were ads. And when you're done, hit stop and come and get me."
Okay.
All right. What year was that?
That was like 19, I want to say 73 maybe?
Man, I was just barely not shitting my pants.
Yeah.
Oh, shit, your pants.
Yeah.
I wasn't.
We were 4.
Yeah.
I
We were
was.
probably shitting our pants too.
But
Sometimes I still
four.
do. I don't even
I did what I did.
Some of
and
us in the
he
room
honored
were
me.
not even thought of then.
Pick me.
You weren't even a twinkle in your mama's eyes.
No.
So I got-
Daddies or
or twinkling
Yeah.
in
Man,
daddy's
man,
nuts.
we're way too much fun.
Oh, it was craziness. And the guy said, "Fine, you start next week." And then he said, "I want you to come in a couple nights and just sit here and watch the guy, how he operates the board and turns the commercials off and on, and how he cues up the records." There were actual vinyl records.
What?
I had them. I had them.
I still
Craziness. And from there, I got in several bands, and then I started doing comedy again. I got into acting. I did some industrial films. I did an industrial film where I played.
Industrial by like
Porn? No.
Porn industry?
No. I was one of 6 characters. My character being Robin Williams, and they had me dressed up like Mork, and it was for Pizza Hut, and it was a training film for the Pizza Hut employees. And they had a guy dressed up and talking like W.C. Fields for what for the sauces or whatever. And then they had Robin Williams. I think my thing was dough. And then they had they had different characters, and we
Yes.
were dressed up and talking
So
like
you're
an acting.
stealing other people's material and using that dough to
No,
pay off?
no,
comedians?
not,
I'm
no,
just kidding.
no. It was
No, I'm,
it was strictly true.
we talked last week with Lenny.
Yeah.
That he was talking about how Robin Williams borrowed material and just paid everybody off.
And that's true.
Yeah, I know.
But
He
if it's
did,
not
but I
funny,
mean-
I'll take it back.
But that's-
Don't tear my dream of Robin Williams.
Listen, that was no. It was genius
Hey, we won't
what he
leave you
did.
hanging.
It
Yeah.
was genius what he did. in my
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah, and I would see Robin when he was starting out. He would be at the Comedy Store at like 7:00, and then I'd see him at the last stop at like 8:00, and then when he would go on TV, he'd make it look like he just thought it up, where he'd done that bit, 6 times at all these
Yes.
different clubs and got worked out the kinks and got it right. And he had taken some material, but one thing led to another. I was in a film that banks use to train their employees when they first come, if they're the first person to come and open the branch, what they have to do to open the branch and what. And I was a mugger in that film.
Nice.
Were you wearing what you got on today?
No,
Because that
no.
You're pretty close.
That might work.
It might work.
Now, what's really funny about this is every time I would do one of these different film projects for one of these advertising companies, I would get a copy to add to my portfolio to say, hey, you can go into prospective clients. The agents say, well, you ought to use Alan Kaye. He's done this, he's done that. Here, watch. Well, they wouldn't give me a copy of that one because they said, we're teaching people, how to
Not rob a bank.
basically.
Yeah, basically.
Not what to do.
So
Yeah.
what's funny is, many years later, I came off the road and I was living in Dayton, Ohio at the time, and I ran into someone who was working at a bank in Indianapolis who was from Kokomo, and she said, "You're not going to believe this." I said, "What have you been doing?" She goes, "I work at a bank." And I said, "Really?" And she said, "Yeah, I'm one of the few female bank managers. Most of them are males, and I've got this bank." And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "And you're never going to believe this." And I said, "What?" And she said, "One of the training films they showed me, you were the robber."
Take your fame.
Yeah, and this was 15 years later.
Wow.
That's funny.
But I was doing comedy clubs in between doing opening for big name acts at the time, Spyra Gyra and Emmylou Harris
Seriously?
and the
Spyra
Temptations.
Gyra?
Yeah, oh yeah, Najee, tons of acts.
Did you
I was
say Emmylou Harris?
yeah, I was their opening act.
Damn.
He is somebody.
You know what? But
It's
he's
Chicago.
so humble.
and Ozzy Osbourne.
Let me
Real
just say
humble, though.
let me just
Like-
say this. Let me just say this. I don't consider it humble. I consider it this. We're all born with different talents, and I happen to be born with a talent where I can change my voice and I can act and I can, communicate in the arts. And I've been given that gift, and I've worked very hard to mold it and create it and shape it and make it better and better as I do every day. And I happen to be at the right place at the right time, and I had what they wanted. It wasn't given to me. I toured with Chicago 4 years in a row. One of the years, they decided they were going to use Brad Garrett, who's a very accomplished actor, and they used him 6 shows. The second night they had him on tour as their opening act. I opened for him in '82. And I can't remember whether it was 83 or 84, they was going to use Brad Garrett, and they decided the second night out, he wasn't cutting it. And the 7th night, I was sitting at home in Dallas with my wife going, man, I hate being back in clubs. I can't wait to get another touring act. The phone rings, and it's Jack Gowdy, Chicago's tour manager, and he says, "Dude, you remember last year when you opened for us at Chastain Park in Georgia?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "You got a standing O, didn't you?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, I thought you got a standing ovation. He goes, "Well, this Kevin Nealon guy, his agent sent over all these clips of him doing a guest shot on this TV show or that TV show or this TV show, and he looked funny and great. Live, he can't cut it." He said at Chastain Park last night, they were throwing beers at him going, "Bring on Chicago." And I said, "You're kidding me." And he said,
love Kevin.
he said, "There's a prepaid ticket for you at DFW Airport. You're going to be on that plane tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. and we're flying you to Blossom in Cleveland to open the show. You got the rest of this. You're back on tour with Chicago." The next year, and I
That's
can't remember if it was
awesome.
the year before or the year after, the next year, they said, "Well, you've toured with us 2 years in a row. We normally only keep somebody a third of the United States on one tour, and we've kept, and I said, I understand. If you ever need me, call me. They used a band called Big Country.
Yep.
In a big
yep.
country.
They
we're gonna
had-
stay with ya.
They
It's
had
the only
like,
country band I know.
they
Not
had,
even
like,
country.
No.
It's not?
They're more punkish.
Oh.
they're,
Like 80s pop punk.
so they
Pop
didn't
punk, I was
mesh
gonna
with
say
the
something.
people. The people that came to see Chicago didn't like
Right,
that music,
right.
and it was costing them probably $7,500 a night to have this opening act that wasn't kicking it. And I'm sitting back in Dallas,
Get another phone call.
thinking tomorrow night I get on a plane to fly to Houston to play the Laugh Stop Comedy Club, a 200-seat comedy club for a week. Tomorrow I leave to go do that, and the phone rings. It's like 11 o'clock at night, and it's Jack Gowdy, and he goes, Big Country. And I go, yeah. And he goes, they suck. The boys want you back, and you get double pay this time. We got he said, I told them they had to give you a raise. They keep relying on me. So I got called back, and I did that year. Then the next year, Peter Cetera said he wanted to go solo. The band and he were having problems. So Peter was getting ready to leave, and Peter said, I'm done the end of 84. And the management and the agency came back and said, look, you had Chicago 16, 2 big hits. You got Chicago 17, 4 big hits, and we're in the middle of it. You can't leave now. And Peter said, I told you guys I'm leaving the end of 84. And they said, at least go to April 85. Or at least just finish out 85. And he goes, no. And finally he said, okay, I'll do till April 85. So they said, well, you might as well just stay on and do the whole rest
whole
of the
damn
tour
thing.
because we're going to have to break down and retool to get somebody to replace Peter. And, might as well do the whole thing. So I did 82, 83, 84, 85. And then I did some assorted dates in 87 through 89 with them as their opening act when
That's
they needed
cool.
me.
Oh,
Nice.
Peter.
Really cool.
Peter, what a
Peter.
dick.
I got to tell you the coolest thing. I got to tell you the coolest Peter Cetera story I got.
There is a
I need
cool
one
Peter
more
Cetera story.
Peter Cetera.
That's the least cool Peter Cetera story I've ever heard right there, but go ahead.
Peter Cetera is a brilliant guy and very smart and a good guy. And we were leaving an arena. We were playing, I think it was Pittsburgh. And we were leaving the arena, and they had limousines inside the arena backstage. So we didn't have to go outside for anything. Just in the car, and bam, they'd hit the garage door over, and you'd go out and gone. And the limos were all lined up. And Peter was saying, Jack, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. And the rest of the guys were in the hospitality room meeting with record people and contest winners and all that. And Peter had done his schmooze for the night, and he was ready to get out and get some rest. And he said, I'm ready to go. And Jack said, who else is ready to go? And they said, nobody. And he looked at me and said, Al, are you ready to go? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, why don't you ride back to the hotel with Peter? And I said, fine. So Peter and I are walking to the limo, and Peter had a bad cold, and he was trying to nurse his voice. I mean, he sang more songs than anybody. And as we're walking to it, this guy goes, hey, Cetera, sign this for my kid. And Peter said, I'm sorry, I'm not, he had a scarf on and everything. He said, I'm not feeling well, I'm going to the car. And as we're going to the car, the other guy said, yeah, well, you meet the same people on the way down as you do on the way up. Don't forget that. So we get in the car, and the limo driver shuts the doors, and he goes around and gets in, and we start pulling out to go to the hotel. And Peter looked at me, and he said, did you hear what that guy said to me? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, let me tell you a little secret, kid. On the way up, they tell you ain't shit.
Mm-hmm.
And on the way down, they tell you ain't half what you used to be.
Mm-hmm.
So they can all just kiss my ass.
Ah.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
like the story of my life, because I have never went anywhere up or down, and I'm hearing the same shit too.
Yes.
That is awesome.
In that moment where you just like,
Well, I think I've learned something. I think I learned something off of everybody I meet, whether it's good or bad, whether they're famous, not famous. People I see on the street, sometimes I'll get an idea for a character just by watching the way somebody
Oh,
chews their
yeah.
gum.
Yeah.
You know,
For sure.
so
People watching.
I like take it in, and I hear all these stories about people love Don McLean. Oh, Don McLean, bye American Pie. Let me tell you something. This guy is a turd. I don't know how to spell that. No,
You've met Don McLean?
DRET?
Don McLean. I was opening for Don McLean at a place called Nick's Uptown in Dallas, Texas on Greenville Avenue, and this was the mid-'80s. and he had a song called "Crying Over You" that was a hit at the time. Now, as to my knowledge, he's only had 2 or 3 hits.
I just thought one.
I
American
only know
Pie,
one. Yeah, that's the only one I know.
"Crying Over You," which was, I think, a Roy Orbison song or something. And then he had one about somebody that was on a sitcom. Famous.
I'll Google that.
Okay.
We are very.
So anyway,
Google.
only
Or
3,
Googly.
2 or 3 hits. At the time, Lisa Gibbons,
Yes.
The
What-
Lisa Gibbons.
the Lisa Gibbons, was
Why
just
is that?
starting out. She was on the local PM magazine of Dallas, Texas. That was her job at the time. She was the pretty voice of the local Dallas PM magazine. And she was a sweetheart. And we were in there in the afternoon when he was
Gorgeous.
doing his sound check. And so I had to wait until Don was done with his sound check, and then he would go out to the bus and do whatever he had to do, and I was going to go up and get my sound check. And during that time, his manager and everybody had agreed that Lisa Gibbons and PM Magazine was going to be there to interview him. And they were going to put it on the show that night at 5 o'clock, or I mean at 6 o'clock, and and our first show was at 8. You know, it was going to go on that
Yes.
night. So it was a big deal, and they had a sound truck outside and everything. And so they introduced everybody, and he fiddled around with his guitar. He was basically done with his sound check, and he was on the stage just messing with his guitar. And they said okay, and she started the interview, and she got about 2 minutes into it, and they go cut, and she goes, "I'm sorry, we got to stop." She goes, "What's the problem?" They go, "The lighting's not right." So they changed the lighting and stuff, and they said, "Okay, 3, 2, 1, boom," and they do it, and they get about 3 minutes into it, and they go, "Cut," and he goes, "What?" And they go, "The sound, we're getting a background sound from the air conditioner or something. You know, we got to change the sound setting." So the third time into it, they get into it, like I say, just a few minutes, because they're on top of what's right and wrong out there in that truck. And something else happened. They said, "Cut," and she said, "I'm sorry," and he goes, "You're one of the sorriest people I've ever seen. Honey, if you don't know how to do your fucking job, I might as well just take my guitar and go back out into the bus and sit down. I'm wasting my time with you people. I don't need the publicity anyway. I'm doing you a favor, young lady." And she was like tearing up, you know, it was like Bernadette Peters, you know, it was like she was like freaking. So,
What must have been maybe 10 minutes?
oh yeah, 15 minutes maybe,
Yeah.
you know, and he was just, I don't even remember the exact words, but it was all just mean and nasty and intolerable. And finally he just, he did about, they finally got it going, and he did about 3 minutes, and I'm sure she had a lot more to go, and he goes, you guys have a nice night, I'm out of here. And just got up and unplugged his shit and walked out the back door and got on the bus.
It's disappointing to hear that people that you like, that song, Bye Bye,
Miss
American
American
Pie,
Pie.
you know, you hear that, you love that song. Everybody, I don't know anyone that doesn't like that song. Maybe they-
Everybody knows that song.
Yeah, they know it.
Our kids don't, but we do.
Yeah, but that's one of them songs that even our kids have probably heard.
It was a kid's name. It was like Joseph or Norman or a Don McLean
Joseph
song
or
with a
Norman.
boy's name. Don
So-
McLean song with a
The
boy's name.
third,
Joey's.
Anyway,
Vincent.
So
Vincent.
Joey Vincent. I don't know who that is.
No, just Vincent.
So
Just
not Joey.
Vincent.
oh, just Vin-
Just
so
Vincent.
so when you hear something like that from somebody that you know, like, oh my god, and then they're like a dick like that, you're like kind of like,
It's disheartening.
fuck that song.
Yeah,
I
fuck
hate
him.
fucking American Pie. I hope you crash your fucking Chevy into the levee and you fucking drown, you cocksucker Don McLean.
April, Jimmy, don't be
What is it?
Now it's getting deep.
Fuck your whiskey.
But
Fuck
see,
your rye.
me and Lisa Gibbons were supposed to get married if we both got to a certain age and we were single. And is she single? I don't know. They call me. Lisa Gibbons.
The moment has
Lisa,
passed.
call me.
I'm
No, but what I'm saying is, I hate to hear a story like that. When
Do you
there's
know
somebody-
who? Are we all familiar with Leon Redbone?
Yeah.
the Leon.
Leon
let's see.
Redbone. Eddie Gaddis, who was the manager of the Gore Ballroom, calls me one night on a Wednesday night, and he said, "Listen, I got a show coming in on Saturday, 2 shows. Leon Redbone, I want you to open the show." And I said, "Great." And he goes, "You know who Leon Redbone is?" And I go, "I sure do. I can't wait. This will be a blast." So he said, Well, I got to get their approval. Well, he had to fax back then. He took a picture of me, and I was in a suit and tie with white shirt. He took that promo picture and he faxed it to him. And then I had taken a picture where I'd had this Raggedy Andy costume made for Halloween. So it was suspenders and then short pants and knee socks. Well, what I did was I put it on, and then I put the shoes on the floor, and then I put my knees in the shoes, so it looked like I was real short. And I just took that picture for fun, and Eddie sent that to Leon Redbone's manager too. And he told him, he said, Alan Kaye's opened up so many shows at the Agora here. He's opened for so many shows here, and he's done a great job every time, and we use him a lot, and we think he'd be great as your opening act since you need one. So they write back and say, Leon approved. Leon saw the videotape and the pictures, and fine, he's the opening act. So I get there in the afternoon, I get to meet Leon. It's Leon Redbone, and he has a tuba player with him. It's just him and a tuba player.
Really?
Tuba.
Yeah, a tuba.
Tuba.
So they run through some things, and they play some pre-recorded stuff over the tape that they're going to use over the PA, and I do my sound check. And they go back to the dressing room, and Eddie said, what do you want for your meal? And I said, I don't really want a meal. I said, just bring me salad. And he said, okay. He said, you want to meet Leon Redbone? And I go, do I? And he goes, yeah. Hell yeah, let's go. So we go backstage, and I get to meet Leon Redbone. And Leon, the whole time, he's saying, this is Alan Kaye, the comedian, impressionist, and da-da-da-da. The whole time he's looking me up and down. He's looking me up and down. So when we get done with the stuff, I said, Leon, I've got a lot of your albums, man, and I love your style and your stuff. And I said, I'm going to do a good job for you tonight. And he said, the whole time I've been looking at you, I was kind of confused because when I saw that promo picture, I thought you was a midget. And I said,
he don't know that we don't use that term anymore. But
I said, are you disappointed that I'm not? And he said, no, I just thought it might be an interesting twist. So I do the show for him. Now, back then, I was married and my wife worked in a bank, and one of the guys that she worked with, he and these friends, they collect autographs, but they have people do it on crisp, brand new $1 bills on the face side. Okay. Then they put them in photo albums with a picture of that person, because half the time you can't tell who that person is by the signature. And anytime they could get extras, then when they'd get together, they'd say, well, I was out at the ballpark and I got Pete Rose's, or whoever, and people.
I wouldn't bet on it.
People, yeah. So during that month, I was going to open for Phoebe Snow at Nick's, and I was going to open for Leon at the Agora, and then the next week, 2 weeks after that, I was leaving to go out with Spyro Gyra. So I had all these people I was going to meet. So he brought me an envelope of bills that you couldn't hardly take apart. They were so crisp. $1 bills. He worked at the bank, and he said, "Give me all the signatures you can, man. I'll even pay you for them." I said, "No." I said, if I ask them all to take pictures with me because I want people to remember and see what I've done, and I said, "I'll be glad to ask." So I had these dollar bills in my bag, and we'd done the first show, and we had a half hour between shows, and we're back in the dressing rooms, and I thought, I'll have Leon sign one of these, or maybe a couple for him. So I went back in there and kind of knocked on his door, and he said, "Come on in, young man." I said, "Hey, Leon," I said, "I'd like to get your autograph." He said, "Wow, sure, I can do that. Ain't no problem with that. Jared, bring me my case." And I pulled out the $1 bills, and I said, "I have a friend, he's a banker." And I said, "These guys belong to a club, and they all get signatures on $1 bills. And I'd appreciate it if you'd sign a couple of these $1 bills for me." And he tipped his hat back, and he sat back in the chair, and he said, "I don't think I could do that, because that would be what you call defacing American currency. And knowing my luck, some skinner would come back and grab me up for that." He said, "But I will give you an autograph." And he handed me back the $1 bills, and I thought he was kidding. I said, "No, really?" And he said, "No, I can't commit no federal offense." And he took out an 8x10 glossy, which I still have, took a purple magic marker and signed his name, and then did like a caricature of a macaw or a bird, a big parrot on a thing, and said thank you, and he signed 2 of those for me. But he
Wow.
would not sign
Hey,
the
Wow.
money.
Wouldn't deface
Why,
the
that's what they
American
call defacing the
Isn't he the voice?
American
Isn't he the voice on Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer or Frosty the Snowman?
And he does, Mama gets the stains out with the hell out.
And yeah, and he also does.
And he's also the guy that said, when you say bud, why
I
well,
said-
you said it.
Oh,
And he also did Mr. Belvedere, the
Yes,
theme,
he did
theme
the theme.
show.
but was he
Freaks on the
Frosty the
China,
Snowman or was he
never
Sam
out
the
of it
Snowman?
I don't.
I didn't even know that was related.
Yes, it was
Sam, we had that. He had that, and he played the guitar.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I actually took that video of him playing. It was a banjo actually, and I took him playing that banjo, and I put it to dueling banjos. But that was him on that one, not Frosty the Snowman.
It was that guy.
He
Sam
also
the
sang.
Snowman.
He also sang
I
right
think-
here. It says, "Baby, It's Cold Outside" was Zoe Deschanel in the movie Elf.
Yes,
Yeah.
He's the that's
Yes.
the voice.
there you go.
Awesome.
Do we get to hear some other impersonations?
Who would you like to
I
hear?
want you to talk about your time with Ozzy, because here's the thing with Ozzy. I grew up, and a lot of us grew up, except for you. We grew.
I
We,
listen.
no,
She-
I
she
understand.
listens.
I understand. No,
I listen.
listen to me. When we grew up, Ozzy was the Prince of Darkness. He was evil. He
He was
was
biting heads off the
mysterious.
bat.
he was
Yeah, biting
uh,
heads off bats and
but
rats and
in
whatever.
your age and my kid's age, he's a fucking clown.
Yeah, I mean, he's portrayed as a clown.
Yeah.
Right,
Because
no.
they did the
Just that
show.
he's- yeah.
Which
He's
When
done
I
a
first
show,
saw
and he
when I first saw the
did.
Osborne reality
That too.
show,
Really?
and Sharon, by the way, Sharon is a genius.
that's what I was gonna say.
And she is
Genius.
a ruthless, and I mean ruthless, entrepreneur and manager. Her dad was Don Arden, who managed anybody and everybody who was anything in metal. And she learned from one of the best, one of the most cutthroat, ruthless, powerful men. And the thing about Ozzy is, when they did that reality show, I thought, she's lost her mind and this will be the end of Ozzy.
Nope.
This will be the end because the
Reinvented him.
mask will be ripped off the Lone Ranger,
Right.
and this ain't going to be good. I was so wrong. I was
Yes.
so wrong. It scooped him up and took him over another wave as big as he'd been through up to that point.
Well, then I think it also led to him getting completely clean at one point in time.
She's the only thing. She is the only reason why he's alive.
He's still alive.
I
Yes.
guarantee
Yes,
it.
she is the woman.
He
behind
would
the
he
man.
would have
I mean,
overindulged
when you're
himself.
biting heads off that, where do you go from
That was
there?
all an accident. He didn't think it was
He took 20
real.
years off.
Yeah.
20 years old. So, you just don't start biting heads off bats and think that you're going to live to be, like.
How I
It was before Lyme disease, to be
Well, and he thought,
Right.
he
Or
thought it was
rabies.
a fake bat.
well,
Yeah,
he
yeah,
had
everybody
he had also gotten excited at a record executive deal when they were talking about signing a deal, and he and Sharon at the end of the consummation of the deal, they were going to let these doves go. This is a true story.
Yep.
They were going to let these doves go. And for some reason, the deal didn't go how it was going, and everybody got pissed off and stuff. And Ozzy grabbed one of the doves and bit the head off and spit it out in the room and left. Walked
Dang.
out.
That's probably where all the rumors started.
That's the first thing that happened.
The bat happened,
The
too.
bat happened when he was in concert, and somebody threw a bat up, and they'd been throwing gummy
Yeah,
bats.
he thought it was
He,
fake.
he thought it was just
Yes.
another. They'd been throwing stuffed animal bats and gummy bat, and he just thought it was another prop, and it wasn't. But anyway, my story about Ozzy is this: I was in between comedy gigs,
in between jobs.
and I was getting sick. I was getting sick of doing the comedy so much, and being gone so much, and traveling so much, and the band had only just been a thought in my mind. And I was talking to an agent in Nashville, Tennessee. Who, actually, he's not an agent. He owned Talent and Touring Booking Guide. He owned a magazine. And he and I had been friends. He was originally from Kokomo. His family's from Italy. He used to work at Performance Magazine in Texas. And he owned the Talent and Touring Booking Guide. And I was saying, man, you know everybody. Get me a gig. Come on, you know somebody. I said, I'm going to get thrown out of my house, this, that, and the other, and laughing about it, you know. And so he said, somebody sent me a videotape and some pictures of you at a Halloween party dressed as Ozzy. And I said, oh yeah, it's my friends. They got this property out on 28 in their barn. They've redone it, and it's all this big banquet thing. And they have this huge Halloween party, and I went as Ozzy. And he goes, you ought to be in the fucking tribute business, man. I go, what?
There's a
I don't know.
business?
I said, I don't know anything about the tribute business, man. He said, oh, dude, you could be making some money. I said, first of all, I don't know any agents anymore that are in that business. Second of all, I don't know the first thing about it. He said, listen to me. If I get you an audition, will you go do it? And I said, yeah. And he said, you ever heard of Legends in Concert? I said, no. And he said, they're only the biggest tribute company in the world. They got a place
Branson, Missouri.
Branson, Missouri,
Really?
Las Vegas, Nevada, Atlantic City. They do things in Canada. He said, I'll call you back. 2 days later, he calls me back. He goes, you got to be in Las Vegas next Friday, and you got to do your thing at 4:30 in the afternoon. And he said they want you to audition as Ozzy and Joe Cocker. So I went.
What the heck?
That's your
Do
This
you
Joe
ever get
Cocker?
nervous? I want to know. Do you ever get nervous, or are you
Never.
just like,
Never.
I got this?
Never.
I could tell that.
No,
by
I'm
now.
like,
I
I
know
can't,
it.
really, let's do this.
Yeah.
But I had this fake beard that it took me a half a day to get ready, and I pack all my stuff and I fly to Las Vegas. Well, I'm supposed to do it at 4:30 in the afternoon, and at 9 o'clock in my hotel room, it's going, yeah, 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 yeah. And I look over and the phone's ringing, and I pick it up, and I go, oh, you know, the guy that doesn't get up before 10. And I go, hello? And they go, Mr. Kaye, this is so-and-so from Upstage Corporation that owns Legends in Concert, and our CEO and his assistant have to leave on an afternoon flight to go to Florida because we're building this new theater at the Hard Rock Casino, and we've got to move your audition app. And I said, till when? And she said, could you be here in like an hour, hour and a half? And I said, yeah. And she said, we'll see you then. Click. And I sit up in bed. I sit up in bed and went, oh, man.
Did you yell Sharon?
I'm freaking, man. I picked up my bags and and got them to the door and went and took my shower and brushed my teeth, given all this stuff, and I
Thank
called
God.
the cab. Cab comes, I get in and I go to this place and I get dropped off and I go in and it's marble floors and it's an octagon shaped room and the ceilings are like 15 feet tall, and they got pictures of a guy that looks like Buddy Holly, and it's 8 feet by 5 feet. Next to it, they got a chick dressed like Tina Turner. I mean, these are huge. These are freaking huge things, And I go up and there's this real dark marble receptionist desk, and she's on her little deal, and she goes, "May I help you?" And I go, "I'm Alan Kaye." And she goes, "Oh yes, you're here for the auditions. Just a minute." And she goes, "He's here? Okay. They're sending someone up to take you to wardrobe." And I said, okay. So these people come out, these two guys come out,
Wardrobe?
and they take me down to this wardrobe thing,
Right,
and he
we'll
goes,
try it.
"Have you got all your stuff?" And I go, "Yeah." And I just had, it was like a Halloween costume, Ozzy. It was a raggedy wig, and it was a cheap thing. I mean, it was nothing fancy. The most
Do you have your
insane.
notes in 72 font like you do today?
Sometimes I have them. Sometimes look how these are. Look how these
Yeah,
are.
that's small. That's
Now
like
look how these are.
He's got the wing ding.
It's whatever.
The wing
Jimmy,
ding.
just wait. Your 72 font is coming.
I know.
Honey, it's
I
already
type,
there.
I type in caps and I'm not screaming. Okay.
What'd you say?
Yeah, tick, tick, tick.
Jesus, Alan's at it again. He can't
pissed.
stop.
So I'm in this dressing room and he says, "Now I'll take you," he said, "put your stuff here and I'll take you to where you're going to perform." And he takes me into this room, and it's like 30 feet long and it's 15 feet wide. It's a long rectangle, and at one end there's a platform up about 5 inches tall that's a stage and a mic on it, and then two big speakers that look like they belong at Market Square Arena. And then way at the back of the room, there are 8 metal beige folding chairs and a sound mixer board and a video camera. And he turns on the lights, and it's all lit from the ceiling, and it's lit up in there like an operating room.
Yeah.
And so he says, "Just come back and when you're dressed." So he said, "Do the cocker first, since it takes longer." So I'm in there and I'm putting on this beard. I'm doing all my stuff.
Wake up.
And I put the beard on, I put the gap in my teeth, and I go in, and they've got the disc with my music, and I go up on this stage, and there's these 6 people sitting in the back of the room with their arms crossed, just like impress me. And in this bright light, fluorescent room, big,
No pressure.
nothing.
Go.
And I do the cocker, and they don't move, they don't do anything, and they're whispering back and forth. And when I finish, they thunderously applaud and go, "Are you gonna do the Aussie next?" And I go, "Yeah." And they go, "Okay." And he goes, "Go change to Aussie." So I take the beard off and I put the Aussie stuff on and all the chains and the shirt with the crosses. So I didn't knock, I did nothing. I just opened the door and stumbled in and went, "Hey, what's going on? This must have been something for me, but it's 11 o'clock in the morning, for God's sake, man. What, you know?" And then you get that look like Ozzy always gets, like somebody just hit him in the mouth. "Oh, I'm not joking, man. I love you all more than anything in the world. But come on, man. It's not even fucking noon." And they're going, and the guy goes, "That's enough. Go take your stuff off and then come up to the front." So I go take my stuff off and the makeup and put the stuff off, and I come in and he says, I'm Jeff Victor. I'm vice president of stage. And he said, "I want to bring you into the inner office." And he takes me into this office that's almost as big as this room. And on the table, they've got a model of the theater they're building in Hollywood, Florida, next to the Hard Rock Casino. And it's got all the little seats in it and the stage and all these little lights and all the stuff. I mean, it's a model of the theater that's out of white foam core board, and it's amazing. And he said, "We're going to have you start doing Aussie for us in February at the Hard Rock Casino in Hollywood, Florida. Here's what I'll offer you money-wise, and here's when it'll start, and we'll use you like 3 weeks to 6 weeks. Do you want the job?" And I said, "Uh-huh." So
Was that after you saw the paycheck, or?
Well, here's what's funny. When February came, I got no call, and I was beginning to panic, so I called back out there. And they said, "Well, he's on the road," and they didn't call me back for 4 days. And I was thinking, it's over. I knew it was too good to be true.
Yeah.
And he called back and he said, "We had the hurricane down there, so the semis can't get the steel I-beams in to build the theater, so we're behind. So it may not be till the end of March." Then he calls me in the middle of March and says, "It's going to be the middle of April." And he said, "Well, we just can't get it done." And so I fly down there and I get there and he goes, "We got you a human hair wig in your dressing room." And I had a coat made and shirts with crosses actually sewn on them and all this fake jewelry and stuff. And I put fake tattoos of Ozzy on the hand and the little running guy every day and do the whole deal. So they take me through a back way of the theater back to the casino, and behind there, and there's this whole line of shops, boutique shops, and one of them is a beauty shop. And they took me in the back door and put this wig on me and sat me, I had the whole outfit on, and sat me down, and she did the eye makeup, and then she put the wig on and started cutting it. And one of the girls said, "Open the blinds, I can't see very well." And she opened the blinds that led out into the courtyard where all these people go by to these little shops. And a big group started forming. And they're all up against the window thinking that I'm Ozzy getting a haircut. And pretty soon the phones start and the cameras start coming out. And now there's more and more people, and there's people holding their camera up over the people in front of the window to get a picture of Ozzy. And finally this one chick bangs on the window and she goes, "Ozzy," and I go, "I love you all, rock and roll!" And they go, click, 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 click. And then they shut the blinds. So Jeff Victor, the CEO and the president of the company that owns Legends, says, "We want to do something." And I said, "Okay, what?" And he said, "We're going to go back and we're going to have you walk from one end of the casino all the way to the other end of the casino, then outside, and then all the way down another half block to the theater." And he said, "We'll have people with you." And I said, "Okay." So I've got 4 guys walking with me in the middle. I've got a water bottle in my hand, and they've got on laminates that say Ozzy staff on it. And so we start walking, and the CEO and the president, they stay back about 25, 30 feet. They're just walking. And so they're walking me down. They're
This is
walking me
Alan
down.
walking.
And I got my glasses and all my shit on, and I'm walking like this, and I
Stumbling
got a
about
water
as
bottle.
only Ozzy would.
And when we get outside, I just happen to look around, and we've got what they've been doing is all through the thing, and I didn't know this. They've been moving people. So when I get outside, there's like, I mean, it's like paparazzi. And we walk the half a block down to the theater end, and the theater's not open in the afternoon. So when we walk in, everybody's left outside. And in comes the president and the CEO, and they are freaking. And he said, you should have seen it, because real stars go through that casino all the time. The security from the casino didn't know I was from Legends. They thought I was Ozzy. And all the guys with the earbuds were running ahead of me at the ends of those slot machines and crap tables going, nope, you got to just stay where you are for a minute.
It's funny.
And they just parted
That's awesome.
the seas for me all the way through that
That's
casino.
awesome.
That's like something I just can't even imagine.
No,
like people
right?
making that commotion
Yes.
over you, but it's not even you that they're
It's-
making that commotion.
And
it's
I ne-
somebody else. That
I
is so
never
awesome.
told them I was, when people would say, they'd get up really close, some people, and go, God, can I have a picture with you? And somebody go, are you the real Ozzy? And I'd say, dressed like this, who do you think I am, Father Christmas? And they go, it is you! Click, 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 you know. So, you know, and when I'd sign, I just, you know,
Yeah.
Bullshit.
and
Bingo.
There's a poor person
that was supposed to
that
be,
shows their.
that was supposed to be
Scribble,
3 to 6 weeks.
And
Ended up being almost a year.
Wow.
That's awesome.
good job.
But then when I went back to them and asked them to book Cocker, they said, well, Cocker's not that big of a draw or whatever. We're going to pass.
So what year was this?
This was 2005.
Right, and so Ozzy was probably.
The show.
The show was
the
really
show
hot
was-
right
yeah.
there.
Then I get a call. There's a guy named Matt Lewis who's an Elvis impersonator, Elvis tribute artist, and he also has a production company where he puts on shows. He calls me and goes, I want you to come and do an amusement park in October. He said they close for the season, then they open for Oktoberfest, and he said one part of the park it's Oompa bands and German beer and sauerkraut, and, you know.
Yeah.
And he said in the other part it's all horror, and we want you to come and just walk around the park and
Nice.
sit and have pictures taken
So they
with
think you're a
Ozzy.
whore?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, horror. Oh, okay.
So they flew me out. They flew me out in like July, and I just stayed for the day and cut a commercial, a TV commercial, cut the thing, and then flew me home, and then I drove back out in late September and worked from September until Halloween. Well, they were having the big Patriots game, and on Sunday, and all the cast was sitting in there watching TV, and when the commercial came on, think about how many people were watching that football game.
Yeah.
When the commercial came on for Canopy Lake Park Scream Fest, it was me doing Ozzy, the commercial I'd cut back in the summertime.
Nice.
Wow.
Nice.
So I got a lot of work out of that, but when the Osborne show tanked and Sharon's talk show tanked, there wasn't any calls coming in for Ozzy, and I switched to doing Joe Cocker, and I put this band together that I call Alan Kaye and the Tunes. We put this band together just to do a Cocker tribute, this band and 3 horn players. Well, that costs so much money, and only casinos and fairs and festivals can afford it, because it's expensive. You know, it's 75 to 10 grand a night, and your clubs can't pay that. So the band said, listen, how about this? How about if we form a cover band, and we rotate different Joe Cocker songs in and out of our cover band set. That way, when we do get a Cocker gig, we don't have to go woodshed like crazy to relearn songs we haven't played in 6 to 8 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
And John Dinwiddie, the guitar player, said, I don't want to be in a band anymore, but if Alan Kaye will front it, I'll be in it. If he's the singer and the front man, I'll do it. So I said, okay. Well, I was in New Hampshire at this amusement park doing Ozzy. And in the daytime, I called back to Indianapolis and I said, look, our first gig's coming up real soon. And I said, we don't have a name for the band, and we don't have any band pictures. And we got to have that done. And he said, well, the pictures we took at that last thing we were at, we'll just use that for promo picture. And he said, we'll decide on a name for the band. And we'd all put like 3 names in the hat. And one of them was Comet and the Tails. That was mine. And one was just the Comets. And then one was the Toons, Toons, like cartoons. And so John said, we already got a name for the band. Now, when they asked me, when we sat down about this band, I said, I got to run everything in the Cocker show. So in Alan Kaye and the Tunes, I'm 1/6 member. I don't run nothing. We all got an equal say.
Nice.
I don't want to be in charge of nothing. And everybody said, okay, that's the way it is. It'll be a
So
vote.
they were a band.
They were a band. The drummer and the bass player and Kevin were a band for a while, and the lead guitar player and Kevin and the drummer were a band for a while called
Right.
Rock Soup.
Okay.
So Dinwiddie had just he didn't want to do Rock Soup anymore. He didn't want to do original songs. They weren't playing big places. They weren't playing a lot, and he just wasn't interested at the time. And when he found out that we were going to do this cover band thing in conjunction with the Cocker, he's in. So he says, we already got a name. And I'm on the phone in New Hampshire. And I said, what'd you pick? And he said, Alan Kaye and the Tunes. And I said, no, I don't want my name being in front of it. The Tunes is cool. I mean, it's like cartoons. And he goes, look, you're the guy that keeps the crowd going in between songs when the string breaks, whatever, introduces the songs. You're the lead singer. It's Alan. People know your name. In Indianapolis, you got friends in Kokomo and all around there. It's Alan Kaye and the Tunes. And I said, I don't want it like that. And he said, you said you wanted to be 1/6 vote. And I said, yeah. And he goes, you're outvoted.
I can see that.
Touche.
So it's not an
Sick
ego thing.
burn, Alan Kaye.
Look at, by the way, I'm going to make a plug before we get out of here. Alan Kaye and the Tunes are on Facebook. Please come and like our page. You hit the events, click the events, and it'll tell you all the places we're playing. We play somewhere like crazy. We got some great gigs coming up this year. We're playing some beautiful private parties. We're playing outside the Idle Jorg Museum on Wednesday, July 3rd. Nice little concert there with the uppity up, and it'll be so
ages.
it'll be fun. We're
Is
gonna
that
be
all ages, that show?
what is it?
Is that an all ages show?
Oh yeah.
That one is? Okay, because a lot of times when you're playing, it's a Cooper weekend, and I don't give that weekend up very often. Ever.
That's
Good for
ever.
Ever. I never give that weekend up. That's my weekend with my dude.
Yeah.
But and I always share your stuff when you're around, but I want to come, I want to be there, something like that. So
We're playing Carmel Fest this year outdoors. That's another
Nice.
all thing. We're
Okay.
playing Freedom Fest in Greenwood. That's another all ages outdoor deal. We've got a lot of fun places that a short drive, and it'd be good for you to get out of town and see some of these other places and see some of these other bands.
Yep.
And come and see us. So check us out on Alan Kaye and the Tunes Facebook page and hit events, and it'll tell you I keep it up pretty up to date. I'm doing comedy with Jimmy Shaw when we get the chance. Like I said, March 30th, 8 p.m. at the Howard County Veterans Vietnam Organization. Tickets are available
we haven't done tickets yet. It'll probably just be at the door.
at the tickets at the door, and the more the merrier.
And another thing on that, the organization, like I said earlier, is in a transition period. People, even if you don't want to or you can't make the show, you still can donate to the cause for that show, which is all going to the organization.
Buy into it any way you can. But if you show up, I guarantee you a good time. Jimmy and I are going to be making you laugh, and we got the great band
Maybe.
right behind us.
Yeah.
Who's your acoustic?
Who's acoustic?
And how acoustic is it going to be?
It won't be if I'm there.
There you go. See, that's
Says
that.
the drummer.
Says the right answer.
Drummer?
The other thing I
It's
want to
not
say
our
is
She's gonna kill you.
the other
Just
thing I
do
want
it
to
here.
say is www.cockertribute.com. Just remember cockertribute.com.
Do not misspell it, or it will lead you to something you do not
Well,
want to see.
thank you very much, and you know that's
Very
true.
active Facebook
But
page.
cockertribute.com,
Yes.
and I portray the later Cocker, not the young Joe Cocker in the tie-dye, but the older Cocker in the black suit, and the band is terrific, and I hope you all enjoy the website. Please keep supporting live comedy. Please keep supporting live music. Please keep supporting this podcast, because as they told you, we're not just entertaining. We're trying to help you be informed of what's going on around, and good things happen. Keep
No
keep
waste.
supporting Lindsay Davidson and her cause, because as she's pointed out earlier in the show, we do have a need here, and we can rise to the occasion and maybe help that
That's
out.
right.
I know we can.
If you're lucky, every once in a while on the Wednesday nights, you get Alan Kaye for free.
That's right.
Right.
That's
Well,
right.
that's
Every
true.
once
Keep
in a while.
supporting Cellar Bar.
Yes, the
Yes.
cellar.
The cellar is a place.
Yay.
If you haven't been here, it's going to blow your mind, because it's small and it's intimate and it's cozy.
It is.
and it's
beautiful.
got its
The
own.
ambiance
It's got
is
its
nice.
own feel, and it's right close to everybody. It's right downtown.
All the cool
And it's
kids
rocking.
are in beard.
For sure.
All the cool kids are doing that.
All the kids down.
I don't
Beautiful.
want to
We're the
let
cool kids.
I don't want to let Alan go without hearing some impersonations.
Oh, no,
so-
no.
Well, let's start off with Jack Nicholson saying, "Just shut your pie hole and pay attention. You might learn a little something." All right.
Hey, we may need to get some impressions.
Impersonators down here.
Pimping
Hey,
the podcast.
wait.
Yes.
Hello once again, Casey Kasem here.
We can do that like. Well, hey,
There it is.
can you say the waste to Kokomo? We'll do this afterwards. I can record them for it, and we'll use
With
these.
Casey Kasem.
Yeah, Casey
The
Kasem.
check will be in the mail.
Hey,
Alan.
keep your feet on the ground and keep listening to the wasted.
Hey,
Hey man, okay, we could put some Cheech and Chong on there, man.
Hey man.
No, man, you don't want hippies on your podcast. Geez, I hate to bother you. My name is Lieutenant Colombo. I was here yesterday about 2:35. There was just me and you, ma'am, because the servants and the help had the day off. Am I right? You see, there's something that's been bothering me. Maybe it don't mean diddly to you, but it's been bothering me, ma'am. You and I were the only ones here. All the doors and windows are locked. I gotta ask you, ma'am. Have you seen a glass eyeball under the couch cushion? Maybe rolling in the kitchen floor.
Rolling. It's got dirt lit on it.
So it's always awesome to just sit and talk with Alan. And
You see, I've been doing comedy since it was safe to be around Bill Cosby.
everybody, cover your drinks.
Yes, he's got a handful of roofies. Right
Here
now.
comes a Jello pudding pop and a Coca-Cola.
And a nice little pill.
Yeah, that's what we're. He had a handful out earlier. He was giving them out, but
Ay, ay,
Now,
ay.
you got here late, you missed the roofie.
So sorry.
Felt like I had one last
Alan,
night.
I you know, like
Hey, did that go up your nose?
Yeah, it's not like
died.
yeah.
You know when doing impressions is the most fun is when you're at the drive-up window and it's 3 in the morning. And you
Nice.
know all they've been dealing with is drunks and idiots and people with bad attitudes. And they say something to you like, "Welcome to Burger King. Can I take your order?" Yeah, this is Clint Eastwood. I'd like to order a hamburger. I didn't say cheeseburger. I said a hamburger. I want onions and mustard. And if there's one stinking pickle, one dill pickle on my bun, I'm personally going to take your head clean off.
I know what you're thinking.
So you gotta ask
It's
yourself.
funny. It's kind of funny. Jared tries to do impressions through the. He changes his voice to
Changed
right
the vo-
through.
like,
So
no,
serious.
no, you can't.
Come on.
Oh, you gotta do
I don't
do
even remember
people.
what I did.
Whatever.
Like, I just
He'll
do
either
whatever.
Hey, you
act
gotta-
country or.
You got to do Charles Bronson, see, because
I
you
can't-
got to do
I
tough
can't
guys.
do the like.
You got to do tough guys so you get
That
their
face.
order right.
I wish
That's
y'all could see
the
that face
Bronson
right
face.
now.
You go.
Bronson.
They go. Welcome to McDonald's. Can I take your order? Hey, zit face, you in the paper hat. Wash your hands and make me a hot dog. I'm sorry, sir, we don't have a hot dog. You'll have hot dogs. That's my friend Clint. He says he wants a hot dog too. 2 hot dogs. Sit face.
That's hilarious.
No, yeah, I attempt impressions, but I am absolutely horrible.
no,
So
but
Well,
Never leave an impression of somebody,
just
it's just
$2.25, I have a booklet here.
Mr. Haney.
How to do famous voices. Now, $2.50 is the price of the book. The handing it over the table will be another $1.25.
Good stuff.
This is Hi-Ho Kermit the Frog, and you're listening to Waste of Kokomo.
Hey, listen, I can do that too.
It's Dueling Kermit.
hey, I got
I
a.
am Kermit the Frog.
There was a. I worked
We have gone awry.
before I worked at Chrysler. I worked for Wabash National Corporation, and I was
Trailer King.
in a supervision slot, and we had a guy, 2 other supervisors. One's name was Jimmy Head, and the other one was
Jimmy
Jimmy
Shaw.
Hill.
No, well,
Jimmy Shaw and-
but the other one's name was Kerwin LaFawn.
Kerwin.
Kerwin
Kerwin LaFawn.
So I would get on the PA because I was a supervisor too. I get over the PA and I was like, "Give me head at 4 5 blah blah blah," or like, "Hey, Kermit the Frog." And I,
Got banned.
the way I am, yeah. I didn't last long at Wabash High School. No, Chrysler called and I left their asses. But,
Bye.
but I had fun on that PA thing, and a lot of people either hated it or a lot more.
Do you know
loved it.
Jimmy Jones, the guitar player
No, Jimmy
from here in
Jones.
town? When I first met Jimmy, we were just in our early 20s, and there was a disc jockey at IOU named Eli Tyler, and they all used to hang out at the Cedar Crest Bowling Alley. And they'd show up about 9 o'clock, and they wouldn't leave till 6 in the
PBR.
morning. Wouldn't leave till like 6 in the morning, and it
Pumpkin
was
Vine.
crazy. And Eli said, I did impressions, and he goes, I got a guy who does impressions just like you. You guys together would be insane. And I said, oh, cool. Somebody else that does impressions? He goes, yeah. And I said, are they good impressions? He goes, no, he's good. You'll like him. You'll like him. I said, okay. So he arranged for us to meet. And when we met, it was so funny because we did a lot of the same impressions.
Right.
And one of the first impressions, we both started out doing cartoon characters when we were little. Then when we both got older, we both wanted to do the Beatles. So we both all learned to do the Beatles. And people think that Beatles, because it was so popular back then, and it was, people were wearing Beatle wigs and buying Beatle boots, and it was like Beatle everything. And we thought,
Beatlemania.
and the movies, Hard Day's Night and Help, we were all into the Beatle thing, Jimmy and I. So we'd get together and do the Beatles. And so I figured, we'd have to learn to do all four of them. And over the years, I've done them, and
I just love doing John Lennon, because it's nasal and it's pointed. It's got points on it. It's got fever. Where's Paul McCartney? He's up and down. He's got a very happy sing-songy voice.
They never even let Ringo talk though.
And,
did
and
they?
now that
I mean, they
and
let
now
him
that
sing once.
well, now that Paul's
No
older,
respect for the drummer.
now that Paul's older, he's gotten a bit croaky.
Yes.
If you listen to him nowadays, his voice has got that croak.
Why,
Whereas
yeah.
Ringo he still sounds as he ever did.
It's hilarious.
And George is very throaty. He's not in the nasal, he's in the throat, The Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, here you go.
Can you do Yoko?
You doing any Peter? Pete Best. Nobody hadn't even heard him talk either, right?
Jeepers, why? Oh, if I put a hamster in the mailbox, will he go to heaven? Don't go acting all goofy on me, Beaver. Dad'll be really sore if he finds out you're at Metzger's Field with Larry Mondello and that Jimmy Shaw kid. Hey, is Jimmy Shaw in here?
Missed him by about 10 minutes, Chief.
Funny.
Is that,
Well, we got enough material here for about a week's worth of podcast. You're gonna
no,
have
this
to
is
edit.
one podcast.
Yeah, this will be one podcast.
It's
Well,
a 2.5 hour.
Will people listen that long?
Yeah, I think people are. I've had people, hey, yeah, man, you guys are, and they're listening to it. I haven't even made it through all the way through the second one yet.
I haven't made
That-
it
The
first
thing
one.
is,
Definitely 2 hours.
Yeah,
Definitely 2 hours.
only 246.
For 10 minutes a walk. My main man, Charlie Babb. Charlie
Charlie
Babb.
Bad.
My main man.
What kind of underwear do you like? Ray?
Boxer shorts, Kmart Cincinnati. Okay.
It's also about getting into it. I think you've got to.
You get,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
Yeah,
And the thing about what Alan was talking about earlier when he was doing the auditions, he did Cocker and then Ozzy in a big empty room with just some lights. And the thing about doing comedy is, like, outside is doing comedy is different than doing it inside because laughs echo. But when you're doing comedy in like a big room with no audience, and sometimes it's 4 comedians or 4 judges.
I got booked in Sacramento, California back in the mid-'80s, and they'd had that torrential flood out there. and I was playing a comedy club, and we had 6 people in the audience, and the opener did 15, and the middle did 25, and I did 45 minutes.
Yeah.
By the same token, I've stood at Red Rocks opening for Chicago, or Universal Amphitheater, or Market Square Arena sold out and around. I've stood in front of 30,000 people and did my comedy. So it doesn't make any difference the size of the comedy. It makes a difference in the size of you.
Yes.
When I was on the stage with
gotta-
Chicago,
you have to learn.
when I was touring with Al Jarreau in Chicago, those places were big, and I wore bright colored clothes, and I was very physical and demonstrative with my physical movements, because the people up there, you're a dot, you know, you're a dot. And in the mid '80s, there weren't that many places that had big screens at the concerts. You were being viewed from the seats, and that's why I wore bright costumes and moved around a lot. And then when you come into think about television, you know, you're working in a 3 foot by 3 foot square in front of a camera in a television situation. And I think the hardest would be being like on a show like Chicago Med or Chicago Fire or something. You're all doing this, and what you realize, if that camera would pan out, there's guys holding boom mics and guys with great big lights and fans and shit, and people with clipboards, and I mean, there's all this shit going on around, and all we're seeing on that TV show is, so that's how concentrated you got to be. So when I got into the tribute business doing Ozzy and Joe, I didn't just want to perfect. Oh wow, he sounds just like him. I wanted to look as much like him. I wanted to, you know, with Joe, I shave this off and I grow the stubble and I put the gap in between my teeth and I go down to Walt Moss and I tell Doug, give me the Joe Cocker haircut, and he buzzes me bald and does the whole deal. And
You just name drop Doug? Doug Newman? Doug Newman at Walt Moss? Did you just name drop?
hello, Newman.
Hello, Newman. I love Doug.
Well, him and
That's
Leon.
like the first
here's-
name drop tonight. I was really upset
Well,
we didn't name
and
drop
now
a
we'll
lot
be right
tonight.
back after this word from Walt Moss Barbershop, where Leon and Doug and
Don McLean was name dropped.
Don McLean.
Yeah, the local name drop.
well, I wanted to name drop
Don Price.
All Pro Plumbing. These are guys are very good. No, all Pro Plumbing. They came to my rescue. My pipes burst, and they came to my rescue and fixed it. Also want to say hello to Hostetler Heating, because the very next week my boiler and my heater went out, and Hostetler came and saved me there. So those are 2 local companies that saved me.
No.
No, I'm just giving
He's
him
getting the finger
He's getting
shake.
a finger shake and the nod.
No,
No,
we're
it's okay.
joking.
We're not going
We're
to talk
joking.
about it. We are joking.
And I'd like to plug 2 great late disc jockeys. I hate country music, but everybody in this town knows about Morning Fail Call. Yes, Dick Bronson and Charlie Cropper are on the air once again, live from the great beyond. And let's talk about Ray's, where everything is made fresh daily. Made fresh, and they have specials going on each and every day. On Tuesday, it's hog ass and hominy.
Hey, come on.
Tuesday, it's green beans and liver and noodles. Yes, there's always something to let you know it pays to eat at Ray's. And, you know, they have things like coleslaw, green beans, celery, tacos, burritos. They also have a pork chop sandwich, a pork chop fillet, steaks. They have creamed corn, ladies and gentlemen, cottage cheese. You know, he went through the whole freaking menu.
He did.
Every time.
Hey, can,
And my son, when my son Jeremy and I get together, I got to say this real quick before I forget it. My son Jeremy does impressions, and my oldest daughter Natalie does them too. And when Jeremy and I get together, we do fail call, and from Kaye, and he does the best Charlie Cropper, and he always says stuff like, "Well, we're calling a TV electronics store. You got any of them color big screen TVs out there?" And only he does it way better than me. My son also does Eric Cartman from South Park.
Screw you guys.
Oh, and he does it perfect. He does it perfect. I'm not just saying that because he's my son.
A couple things on Dick Bronson, all right? My run-in with Dick Bronson, one time I was working at Wabash National in Lafayette, and I was coming home, and I was flipping through the radio because we didn't have iPods and interwebs on.
Podcasts? You didn't have podcasts?
You don't even
iPods.
know what you are.
I said iPods.
I know, but this is a podcast.
Oh, we didn't have podcasts either then.
There you go.
We didn't have
we
shit
didn't,
but
we didn't have the
radio.
waste of Kokomo, so I was flipping through the channels late at night, and they always replayed Fail Call at night.
Every night, yeah.
But one night, there was music on, and they were playing like older country music that I liked, and I was like, oh my god! So I listened to it. I called the station, and I said, hey man, I love that you're playing music tonight. Is this gonna be all the time? And the guy was like, no man, I'm stuck here at night, and I gotta replay this, and something went wrong with that. So tonight I had to do that. I said, well, I loved it, blah, blah, blah. He goes, well, call him tomorrow and tell him about it. So hey, I'm Jim Shaw, and I'm going to, fuck yeah, I'll do that, man. I set my alarm. I got up.
Get up before 10?
I called it. Yeah, I was on second shift at the time. And that's 10 o'clock is my sleep-in time. So I set my alarm, and I got up, and I called him, and we exchanged pleasantries and stuff, and they got mad at me, and
You were banned for life.
and I said, I called him a dick, but his name is Dick. So, and then they hung up on me. But a couple other things. Sean Cooper. Does anybody know Sean Cooper?
No.
Oh my
You
God.
talking about Tex Cooper's son?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Sean.
I know Sean.
Sean is freaking hilarious. I wish he could kind of step up and do some comedy. But there's a recording of him calling the mail call. All right? And I've got it on my iPod that's out in my Jeep. But this thing is old, and Dick and Charlie was still with us. And he called in there, and he was pretending to be a homosexual on mail call and acting like he thought it was
how?
a mail call.
Male.
Yes.
Not male.
How hilarious.
So they were like going back and forth with him. And,
That's
and
brilliant.
it's
That's brilliant.
And you know, Dick's like, yeah, that's the kind of guy you want to get off real quick, because they hung up on him. But they, you know, and he goes, that's the kind of guy you want to get off real quick, and it just kept going and going.
Wow.
And I got a recording of this.
Well, you know, that sounds real tasty. And speaking of tasty, if you like pie, and I know you do, Mom's Pies on South LaFountain.
Sugar cream.
The crust alone. I don't care whether you
They
get
sell
cherry.
the crust by itself.
Oh, let me tell you something. I don't care whether it's cherry pie
Have you
or sugar
partaken?
cream pie. The crust is flaky and to die for.
What kind of
Their
pie you
average,
don't want crust on?
their
is
average
hair pie.
pies, their average pies are like $10.50 or $11.50. They're well worth the money. Go get it. You'll never ever have a better pie in Howard County than from Mom's
We
Pies.
also accept those as donations.
There you go.
Yeah, Tracy, if you're listening to
Me
this,
too.
that was not someone besides. And my one last Dick Bronson.
This has been like the longest
It probably
podcast
was.
we've
Really
ever.
We're pretty close to.
No, we're 4 hours in.
What's the original
No, we started
Took a
at
break.
No, I'm
6.
not mad about it. I'm
we
just,
started at
I'm like,
6:30
I
for
love
the
it.
break. and
There's
then-
enough here for 4 pies.
Oh, I
So-
love
In
it.
union terms, that's a full day's work.
Wow.
And we had
Whoa.
fun.
For Christmas,
Shots fired.
real quick, I'm gonna get this one out, and then we can talk.
You know what? You know
Dick
what?
Bronson.
You know why Gillette has 4 blades on their razor? One is to lift the hair up. The second one is to straighten the hair. The third one's to cut the hair off, and the fourth one, it doesn't do anything. It's a city job.
He just wanted to fit in.
Just-
We talked about that with the Bearded Bastards. They were
did.
talking about one blade.
We
is
can
all
say
you-
that. We're former union
All right,
workers.
let's hear the Dick
Okay, my
Bronson.
one last Dick Bronson thing is, one year for Christmas, my dad is a raging prick. Didn't appreciate anything.
No name drops.
No name drops, boys. So, so one year for Christmas, didn't know what to get him. We were at the We Care store in the mall, and there was a
Crunch
Dick.
and munch.
There was a Dick Bronson shirt.
Oh
No
my-
way.
Yes, and there was only smalls left. And Floyd is like 6 foot plus, large build. I don't,
Largo.
So, anyways, we got him this for Christmas,
Hilarious.
but we didn't put anybody's fucking name on it. We just let him open it up over at my grandma's. And I don't know to this day if he knows who the fuck gave that to him. And I know he ain't smart enough to listen to a podcast, and I don't give a fuck if he does or not. But yeah, that was your son. Fucking cocksucker.
Secrets out. Secrets out.
Oh,
Well, I
wow.
guess that's where the rubber meets the road. And speaking of that, if I needed tires bad, and I called Chris Wolf up at City Tire,
Man, we were just doing the gamut on
and City Tire is
I
a
love Chris.
city-owned, family-owned operation. They're right close to downtown. If you need tires, go see Chris Wolf at City Tire. Tell him The Waste of Kokomo podcast sent you.
That's right. For
That's right.
for free caps on your valve stems.
And if you actually, if you have any kind
Plastic
of,
ones.
that was
Yes,
a wreck.
only the plastic,
Oh,
not the
not the
chrome
good
ones.
ones.
That was a wreck. Speaking of wrecks, when I wrecked when my car got totaled, I took it to Padfield. Padfield's Auto Body Shop. They're located just on the east side of US 931.
I cannot wait till
They're
these
great
paychecks
people.
come in.
They're
And
great
we are gonna be
people.
rich.
I will agree with Padfields. I had a yellow Cavalier, 2001, I believe. Bought it brand new. Within 1 month, the yellow Cavalier. 1 month. 2 people hit the yellow Cavalier. I'm like,
How did you hit a yellow
how do you
Cavalier?"
not see this thing coming?
It's a lemon.
Like, Lord have mercy. So literally got the front end replaced. I call him 2 weeks later, and I said,
We don't have a yellow to
I
match.
forget his first. Yeah, I was like, Mike, and he's like, yeah, and he's like, well, Padfields, and I was like, hey, Mike, I go, yeah, so that bumper and front end that you just replaced, I'm gonna need another one. He's like, are you kidding me? And I said, nope, it happened again. He said, we got you covered, and sure enough.
Is that like their slogan?
My
Yeah.
my car that I
Seriously,
drive.
he's a good guy.
The car that I drive now, it's perfect, but the headlights were all cloudy and there wasn't anything to do. And I took it out to Padfields. They took the headlights out, buffed them, put them back on, and clear coated them. And now
You can see.
it's amazing.
If you need a radiator,
look
see
brand-
Punchy's.
Just
See Punchy's. But he's the
They're still
radiator
right. Yeah,
shop.
they're still
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
We go to
yeah.
Punchy's.
So last year,
If you need dental work, let's go.
Don't do meth.
Dental work. See Roger Murphy,
Oh,
DDS. Roger Murphy out on West Sycamore. He's a former Bon Air Bobcat kid.
And brush your teeth after doing meth. We
Yes,
learned that,
we
on,
learned
the
that on the first podcast.
podcast.
Always brush your teeth if you're going to do meth.
You
Alex-
don't have to see the dentist.
So last year at the Vietnam reunion, everyone was having a parking problem to where people just thought they could just park wherever the hell they wanted. So Alan was the MC for last year because his band wasn't playing, and we had to keep going up there and doing.
Please move your car.
Please
You got a
move.
blue Buick.
So I gave. Alan was up there on stage, and I wrote down his license plate number. Remember that? Remember that? And we did it like I did it like 3 times.
Who knows their own license plate number?
Alan is angry by the
I do.
second
I know
announcement.
yours and
Like,
I know
seriously.
yours.
But you
this-
just got that new car because
Yeah.
your other one was wrecked.
Yeah.
So it was because I even said the kind of car, and the first 2 times you read it, and the third time you weren't amused at all.
Well,
And I had it recorded, and I think I just deleted it. I think I
Jimmy
put it-
Shaw 10, Alan K. Bazinga, as Sheldon would say.
Yeah, Sheldon.
I gotta say this because you brought that up. I gotta tell you this. We talked about the healing fields. Let me tell you what happened last year. Last year we're at the reunion, and this guy. We had 3 different people come up and say they lost their wallet or their keys. And I think it was about 3 of each. I mean, there was people were having fun, and they're not looking down when they put their keys back in their pocket or their
Or their
phone.
wallet.
And there's tons of people walking around, and the grass is there, and blankets, and well, they lose stuff. So we're making all these announcements. Well, on Friday, they had made a guy had made a plea that he'd lost his wallet. Da 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 da. We announced it. We announced it. We announced it. And Friday night, now it's dark, and we're standing there backstage, and these 2 old guys come out of the dark, out of nowhere, like an apparition on Twilight Zone. They just kind of come out of the dark, and they're all of a sudden in the lights of backstage. And they said, "We heard you found a wallet." And I said, "Yes," and I gave it to Tim Minnick, who is our acting president of the Howard County Vietnam Veterans Organization.
Go,
Fine
Tim,
guy.
go.
Tim's also Tim is not only the president, he's also
also
a
a
pastor.
client.
He's also
Oh, I thought
he's
he
also a
Yes.
pastor of his
He
own
is a
church.
good guy.
And so I
He's a
said,
good dude.
"Tim
I like
has the
him."
wallet." And I said, "Can you tell me the name?" And the guy told me the name. And I said, "Oh, great. Which one of you guys is he?" And both guys said, "Well, it's not us. He's our buddy. And we have driven all the way from, I forget where it was, quite a way away.
Pennsylvania or something. It was far away. I
We
don't
have
remember
driven
where.
quite a way. And he lost his wallet here at the grounds. And it's got not only all his personal stuff, it's got all his personal credit cards, and he owns a business. It's got 2 of his business credit cards with high dollar limits on it, and some cash.
A lot of cash.
So, I said, well, wow, this is cool, you know. So I call Tim, and Tim talks to him, and they tell him all this stuff. And so Tim comes back with the wallet, and I said, before you hand it to him, just out of curiosity, give it to me. I want to see how much cash is in it. And there were 8 $100 bills, 8 of them, and a couple of ones. And I said, there's $802 or whatever. And the guy said, and the guy said, his name is so and so and so and so. He lives at so and so and so and so. I'll get him on the phone. And he gave the phone to Tim, and Tim said they found out it was his wallet. And he said, this is wonderful. Whoever gave you the wallet, he left early and went back home because he was sick to death. He wanted to call the banks and stuff. He had these business cards had like $10,000-$20,000 limits on them. So it got returned, and these guys just thanked us and thanked us and thanked us, and so did the guy on the phone. And so when the guys hung up the phone with him, they said, whoever the lady is that brought you the wallet, he said to give her one of the $100 bills and thank you. And I said, she came up to me just like you guys did. I came down from introducing the band. I got a bottle of water. I was standing here in the dark, and some little old lady come out from around the side of the trailer and said, I found this wallet and want to give it back. And I said, okay. And I opened it up and looked and saw it. I said, well, there's somebody we can get a hold of. And she said, fine. And she disappeared. And I said, didn't give me her name, nothing. There's no way to thank her. And I felt bad because I thought, and I was remiss in not getting her name, but she was the kind of lady that she didn't care.
She didn't
Yeah.
care. She
So,
went out.
and I said, you see why I love coming out here? I said, where else would you go where somebody turns in, and she obviously was on Social Security. She was old enough to be my mother practically. Yeah, and so she returned it with every single thing in that wallet,
Nice.
and it got returned to the
Wow.
right person.
And that speaks volumes for the healing field, because that's what is out there. I mean, you're going to run into people that aren't up to everything, but out there, man, I mean, people look out for each other, and whether, you know, veteran or not veteran, people out there are looking out for each other.
Any
time.
big organization, you're going to have pains like families do, and there's going to be trouble. But by and large, I agree with Jimmy 100%. By and large, everybody you meet out there is going to be a joy to meet, and you're going to have a good time.
And I will just speak to the next generation, right? The non-vets are aging, and they will not be with us much longer. And obviously, I am fortunate that I grew up with that organization. I pulled trash when the trash cans were bigger than I. But if
For dinner.
if the next generation
She still
does
does it for
not
dinner.
grab a hold of the baton that the non-vets are extending to us, the next generation, then this piece of history, this piece of heritage, this grassroots organization that started in Howard County, that is still in Howard County, will be lost, and it breaks my heart to think of that. And I'm hopeful that because the Jimmy Shaws of the world and the networking and people maybe listening to this podcast that are interested, that are intrigued, that want to figure out how to help with your local veterans that have served, are serving, will serve, please do so, because it is unique. It will pull at all your heartstrings. It will get you in all the feels. And I think, Alan, when I asked you the original question of what does the healing field mean to you, it was come on out, because if you come out, it won't be your last time. And I
Well,
think
and
that sums it
that's
up.
a slogan that I honestly believe in. You can't go to one of them and not want to go back.
Right.
It just overwhelms you. And the feeling, like Jimmy said when he was talking, he put his right hand to his chest and said, you kind of just feel it, and you do. I mean, there's if you stop and realize what you're looking at, and so many times in life, I think we run through life doing our daily stuff, and we're being bombarded by information, signs and phones and newspaper and this, that, and the other, and people around us, and bang, we kind of forget what it is. And when you stop a minute and just are quiet out there a minute, and you look around and you hear somebody laughing over here, and you smell barbecue cooking over here, and you hear these people clapping and singing over here, and you
Smells
hear
rockets
these
cooking.
guys
Rockets
these guys hugging each other and talking about,
The hugs.
you know,
Dang, the
talking
hugs.
about
If you're not a
1970.
hugger, you will be a hugger because I mean everybody out there
It is.
likes to
It's
hug.
it is.
it's Woodstock.
I want to name
continue.
drop. I want to name drop.
Yeah.
No way.
You?
Do it.
Joey and Carla Cavazos.
Woo!
Now, when we were talking earlier about you don't have to be a member or a vet, these people are, neither one of them are vets, and they have given hours, months, weeks, years, decades of service. They have sold more
Yes.
raffle tickets. They
They
have
have.
cooked more meals. They have cleaned more kitchens.
They
They have,
take care of me when I'm on the stage. They bring
They
me
do.
food.
they have been so much a part of our organization, and I so hope for Lindsay's generation and the new generation of these younger vets, I certainly hope you have some people that are non-vets like we have Joey and Carla Cavazos,
Joey's
because
kinda
they
cute, too.
you'll be in
doesn't
good
love
hands if you have at least one couple like them. You'll be cooking because
They're
they're wonderful.
awesome.
It's true.
Yes.
It's very true.
That's true. They do, and then they do a lot of cooking out there, donating food.
It's a labor of
different
love.
stuff.
Getting
It's a
going
labor
out
of
to
love.
going out to businesses and getting donations of food and money to help do
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
out there,
They do a
and
lot.
not taking a dime in
No.
return.
He just did it
Nothing.
last month at the meeting. Bought and donated 80 pounds of hamburger for the junior union to then make tacos during
Yes.
the junior union to then give 100% of the proceeds back to the organization.
Tim Minnick,
Oh, yeah, them
Tim
burritos,
Minnick,
man.
our
I fucking ate them all
He
weekend.
did.
Tim Minnick, our president. Here's a guy that lives in Royal Center, Indiana. Has a family with grandkids
Big city.
and a preacher of a church,
Yeah.
and drives all the way to State
All the
Road
way.
26 and hits down there and does his utmost best for the organization that we belong to.
There's a lot of people driving a long
It
way.
is.
to
It's a
help out
labor
there.
of love. Every one individual from the Alan Kaye, Jimmy Shaw, Cavazos, Tim Minnis,
Denny Clellan. Yeah, there and when you come out and meet them,
All the
and again, I
trustees.
got to emphasize this. Please tell the younger vets that you know their first year is free if they want to come and join the Howard County Vietnam Veterans Organization. And Jimmy will tell you, there's a lot of events going out there besides just the June and September reunion.
Yeah.
We got a Kingdom Come
Kingdom
Festival.
Come, yes.
That's
yes.
like third year this year.
It might even be the fourth year.
Is that
but,
out at the grounds?
Yeah.
Yep.
Tell them
Yes,
what
ma'am.
tell them what that
That's
is.
like
It's a Christian
Yeah.
music festival, revival type thing. They started off, I think they had it at Foster Park maybe a year or two, but they moved it out to the Healing Field, and it's 3 or 4 year. I thought it was, anyways. I don't know
Yes.
what it is, but it's out there, and it's something that's it draws a lot.
It does, absolutely. And it's just part of the organization being able to host beyond just that veteran scope. And then also people getting to use that healing field, right? It's not just for us as members. It's not just for the veterans. It's for that community. It's 40 acres of beautiful acreage
The-
you won't find a better sunset in Howard County. I'm going to say it.
And the public's invited, and don't forget about this March 30th night of comedy and music, because
Totally harmless name.
who's your acoustic? Who's your acoustic? And Jimmy Shaw and I will be doing comedy and music and magic, and it's going to be a fun night. So come out and tell your friends about it. March 30th, 8 p.m. at the grounds.
Almost promise you it won't be snowing.
She's lying through her teeth. Oh!
And before we
She's a liar!
Little Sam
Well, before we
Kinison.
yeah, with Kinnison there. Before we wrap up, we want to plug everything we got going on, and obviously this is going to come out in a week or two. It'll be 2 weeks. Yeah, 2
Right,
weeks,
right,
and then
right,
we could sit here all night with Alan Kaye. We could do a 14-hour podcast, probably get some more stories, which we'll have him back on again,
Oh yeah.
and we'll make sure that he remembers which stories he did and didn't. He's
It
getting.
doesn't matter. He'll remember.
He'll just recycle. That's okay.
There are a million stories
There's more
in the
stories.
wasted city.
Yes.
Yeah,
But we're very thankful for the people that came on today that gave their time. Kelly for opening the bar's not open, but coming down here on her day off.
It's a recording studio.
It's a
on
recording
Sunday.
studio on a Sunday, so I mean,
Acoustics are
I'm
beautiful.
okay with it.
yes, I know you're okay with it. I know you're okay, but we appreciate all the, you guys coming out and you telling your stories, you telling what the organization you're the head of, is all about. And
What organization is that?
that would be the FSAHC.org,
Family Service
Association of Howard County.
Domestic
Violence Shelter
and
sexual assault. So we want to make sure you guys go to their website. Once again, that's FSAHC.org. And give Lindsay a call, or if you are in the middle of a crisis, it doesn't matter. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, they've got somebody on a helpline to assist, to talk, to rescue whatever it is that you need done in the city of Howard County, or the city of Kokomo and surrounding counties, New Mexico, wherever you're at.
There's
they're
a
gonna
New
do-
Mexico in the end?
There-
There's a Mexico.
There's a Mexico.
Mexico,
Mexico,
not New
yeah.
Mexico.
No,
The
I'm just
old
saying,
one.
New Mexico. If somebody calls from New Mexico and needs
It's
help,
called Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
she's
Oh,
They can even
Mexico.
they can call even from Plevna.
Plevna.
Yeah.
Yes.
Plevna, Nevada.
Nevada. Isn't that Nevada?
It's Nevada.
Is it Chili or Chili?
Yeah.
Anyway,
It's Chili.
Hey,
So
we get a
7-6
lot of calls from Howard County, Maryland.
Oh, I bet you do.
Hey, but if you Google
They got that
Howard
over
County,
Absolutely.
something, and Maryland always pops
It does,
up.
it does. So we'll help you regardless. We've
My
got
last
the
big
helps of
relationship.
That 800 number is?
seven. Well, we have a
Howard County.
765.
1877.
Fucking weird. Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Kelly really just.
It is fucking weird that she said she had a 1-800 number and then it said it was 1877. Remember? 482-4222. But that is a 1-800-1877 number, actually. I didn't correct her then because that was a serious part of the program.
Yes.
Thank
and then
goodness
we've got
somebody's
a,
editing.
and then if we're local, man, Kelly is on one tonight,
She
folks.
is.
We got a phone number here
I'm
also for a local. It's 765-868-3154. Go check them out. Donate, give, whatever you need to do.
Volunteer your time.
Volunteer your time, or if you need help. It's serious. It's a serious issue we have here in Kokomo. We talked about it earlier. It's going to be up on their website, our website, Facebook, whatever.
They also have the Angel Walk going on April 16th at 5:30. It's a 1 mile walk. And then Z95, Z92.5, whatever. Z92.5 has the Little Black Dress event on either May 2nd or 3rd. We don't even know.
It's a Friday.
It's a Friday.
Whatever, once one of those is a Friday.
We're really good with
We're really good with
dates.
that.
It's May 3rd, confirmed.
May 3rd, confirmed.
Alan, you got anything coming up that
I want to push again the comedy night and the music with Hoosier Acoustic and
March
Jimmy
30th.
Shaw and Alan Kaye, March 30th at the Howard County Vietnam Veterans Grounds,
Doug
8
Arnold
p.m.
will be the host that night?
And you can find out Alan Kaye and the Tunes schedule on Alan Kaye and the Tunes Facebook page. Go take a look and click events, and it'll tell you where we're playing. And come and see us in the clubs out down in Indy or in surrounding area.
All right. And Kelly,
No, don't let her speak.
What you got coming?
This podcast was broadcast from the depths of the beautiful cellar in downtown Kokomo, Indiana.
Thank you, Alan.
We got
so on Tuesday nights, Kelly has open stage night. If you got guitar,
One damn
or
guitar.
Or
a
you
tambourine
sing or
or
whatever.
bagpipes.
I'm going to tell you something. You show up with an accordion, you may not make it home.
If somebody shows up with bagpipes,
Bagpipes. We would like.
please. We
would
just
love
want
it.
a single piper.
Well,
Piper.
here's
We're gonna
the, here's
pipe up
the
that
deal.
room.
If you're a piper and you're listening to the podcast,
We want to talk to you.
bring your arse down to the cellar and play some pipes, and I guarantee you someone here will buy you a pint.
Yes, they were.
So Tuesday night is the open stage night. Wednesday night is the Blind Tiger Comedy Open Mic night. It's the Chinese New Year.
Bill
Maybe-
Cosby will not be here this week.
It's the Chinese New Year. Maybe you've got some resolutions you want to
Is it the
to
year of
knock
the
off
chicken?
bucket. I don't know.
Got a wish
It's the year of
list,
the
something.
chicken or something like that.
So we got that going on Wednesday nights. We got people from all over Indiana coming to have some fun right here at the. Then Thursday night we have karaoke with
Brandy Davis.
She's not real sure if her name is Davis or not, and it's definitely Brandy.
She's
She
got
was
a hyphenated.
Brandy,
Oh, okay.
you're a fine girl. On a sweet life. You always sounded like you had something.
Brandy is the one that was down here like singing off the. Yeah.
She's a beautiful singer.
Great pipes.
Yeah.
Beautiful singer.
You don't want to follow her.
No.
No,
It's
I will.
embarrassing.
I will kill
Especially as
that.
another Brandy.
Yeah. Have you tried it?
Damn it.
No, she's a tough act to follow.
And then, this will already. We
Okay.
have the 16th. We'll be here with Sean Shank.
Yeah, that's
that will
already,
already.
that's gonna be
that will
passed.
on there.
We've got.
So I wish, hey man, remember that
shit.
time we had at the 16th? Remember that?
I don't know. I might have heard some things.
I heard some things.
I don't know.
Wendy, you got anything going on here?
No, I'm just gonna volunteer for the women's shelter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it's
definitely.
You got
Arian,
anything?
anything?
I will volunteer also.
Oh, there we go.
Look, we're gonna sign it, man. People
Look at
just.
that.
And I'm gonna wear a
you-
black dress, and so is my cohort here.
I volunteer
Jimmy,
to wear
we're
a-
doing it right now.
And I'm
Mary.
gonna wear one too, but I guarantee you guys' legs look better than mine.
I know,
'Cause
them
mine,
cats
I got
don't be
pencil
popping.
tips.
We still have to get this cleared through the FSA, I'm sure.
Yeah.
They may already have. it
They
filled
might
out.
not let me in.
Jimmy
with these
knows the
legs.
game.
I'm gonna tell you,
I know
Jimmy,
the
you'd be a red flag for me.
That's real
A
talk.
red flag and a black dress, baby.
That's right.
Wink, really loud.
I mean, I think I look good in a dress.
You did. You know, if I wasn't with Dink that night, I would have probably.
Took him home.
Moving on.
Moving on. We got. This is not the episode to be talking about what I'm gonna do that night. I'm just
Save it for next week.
I'm
Next week.
joking. That is not even anything to joke about. I will. The devil made me tell that one.
Yeah, the devil.
That wouldn't make me do
I
it.
Well,
use that
we want to, like I
six
said,
months.
here at the Waste of Kokomo on the. This is the Alan Kaye and
And the
Buffoons episode.
Yeah.
We want to thank Alan for coming out.
Thanks, you guys are welcome.
Brandy,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Lindsay, everybody that came out
Your
and
shoes. You
hung
never
out with
got
us
back,
this
did you?
evening. We hope that you guys are enjoying our listening. Also, you guys can hit us up on Facebook at the Waste of Kokomo, not the Waste of Kokomo. It's Waste of Kokomo. And you can get Jimmy at, he's got about 3,000 email addresses. That's just to hide all the porn that he loves.
I don't
so
even look
much.
at porn unless I'm in it.
And you can just reach us. I mean, if you guys have any kind of suggestions, you know, if there's somebody you want to see here talk about,
Bagpiper.
if you got a piper, if you've got a piper,
Spread the word about Waste of Kokomo podcasting because
Please.
The more people that hear it, the more people that we can all share the common interest and
Yeah.
bring to head some of the things that need to be brought forward in our community as well as have a good time.
yeah, we appreciate that because we
Even if it's just getting a big group together, like getting more people down here and
Yeah.
And we're working on
that
a
want to
peanut
do,
gallery.
We
that
are.
want to,
Charity
put
work.
their
Mm-hmm.
put their stuff
Yeah,
in the
that's-
community.
that's the reason we're here.
That's where I'm at.
And definitely if you got something that you're doing for the community that you want to get out there, we've got like 100+ listeners.
Yes.
Well, I mean, that's good.
Yeah, that's good.
I know. We're
Everybody's got to start
We
somewhere.
We've
just
only-
started 4 weeks ago.
we've
for
only put
Christ's
2
sakes.
podcasts out. I'm busting our own balls.
Yeah, please.
But self appreciation.
It's getting better, I think. Like last week's was pretty somber. I think everybody was pretty hungover. Maybe.
Well, it was
possibly.
Super
That
Bowl
was not even
Sunday.
that. Superb Owl
The
wasn't very
superb hour
superb.
Yeah.
was just because we were tired, man. We were just tired.
We
did
were
this-
all we went hard that weekend. And
Well,
then
we
came
all
in-
we
then
did.
we came in here and we're like,
Yeah.
Jimmy Shaw's talking about being beat up as a kid by his dad.
Yeah,
Bringing the whole crowd down.
Yeah, I was really worried.
And
We're disappointed
we count
about.
we count on word of mouth. We don't advertise on Craigslist. I sold a snowblower on Craigslist.
Did
What was
you?
her name?
Yeah. Well,
She was Eskimo.
well, I don't know. It wasn't mine. It was my neighbor's. I'm tired of being woke up by it every Sunday morning after coming in late doing a gig. So he's the same. He's the same guy that used to wake me up. I'd do a gig on Saturday night and drink, and Sunday morning I'd be woke by his lawnmower. And finally, one morning, I just propped myself up on his lawn and I said, "Mow around me! Just mow around me! And get a muffler for that Toro or whatever."
Oh, that's hilarious.
But we thank you. We
They woke up in a grass bed.
Yeah. We want to keep this going. So We've got a few things coming down the pipes. We've been talking about advertising, so on and so forth, and we'll let you guys know more about that.
And we're still working on
well,
Kelly's, the seller.
Yeah, we've got some
VIPs.
VIP cards that we can that we're getting ready to sell.
Oh, we didn't even do that.
It's all right.
Right,
We
and
got
get a-
we got
I
'em.
know. He
got
was
'em.
like,
Last week we
what?
talked about the
Very
meme
money,
contest,
money.
but we don't know a prize for it.
Yeah, we're gonna have the meme contest.
We'll do
and,
a we'll
we're
do
gonna-
a tickets to a March event.
for somebody like
right here.
yeah, for here or yeah.
A Texas cage match.
There
That's
ain't
where two
no-
guys come out in
yeah,
cowboy
yeah,
hat,
for here.
wearing nothing but cowboy hats, and Gila monsters attached to their hats.
I actually originally was going to have some professional wrestlers on next week, but they have an event the night before, and
Professional wrestler. I used to love that. My grandparents, when I was a young kid, they were in their 70s, and my grandmother would scream at the TV, "Ref, he's grabbing his trunks! He's grabbing his trunks!" And it was always, "I'm Dick the Bruiser, next Saturday night at the National Guard Armory on 17th Street. Tickets at Ross and Babcock, Ross and Young, and all you rubberneck dirt farming hillbillies better be out there."
Dick the Bruiser. Yes, he sounded a lot like Dick the Bruiser. Then I remember seeing him at the Armory.
Yeah, they
in
always
Kokomo.
wrestled in armories.
And then later on in life, the same routine there was Ravishing Rick Rude, called people pigs. And,
I hear you, brother.
oh yeah, you got to do this.
Yeah, the Hulk.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
Well, thank you for coming out, and we'll all see you guys soon on the Waste of Kokomo podcast.